It's Friday night, and I'm heading home. Emily, my secretary and right-hand man, and I spent the day making decisions. We were both suffering from brain drain. Things were happening fast. We had new contracts, and production was in full swing. It had been a long week, and I was looking forward to showering, drinking a beer, and reclining in my chair. Honey, I'm home. I'm in the bedroom. I walk in and see her sitting in front of her dresser. She is meticulously applying her makeup. I also see a new outfit. I don't remember seeing it before. Wow, baby, that's a great outfit. It's new, right? Yes. I bought them especially for tonight. Okay, where are we going? We're not going anywhere. I'm going out to dinner. Oh, I see. Girls' night out? No. I'm going out with this man I met at work. He invited me to dinner. I took a couple steps back, and everything around me went white. It was like someone had turned my brain off. The next thing I know, I'm sitting in my chair with the remote in my hand. Out of the corner of my eye, I see movement and turn my head. Through the fog are bits and pieces of my surroundings. My wife is standing there looking at me. She is dressed for an evening out. A little black dress, 5-inch heels on her feet. I just sit there and stare at her. I don't know how long I'll be. Don't wait up for me. I see her lips move, but the sound is not picked up by my brain. I don't know how long I sit like this before the fog starts to clear. Everything looks familiar, but the house seems empty. And then it hits me. My wife, who I've been with for over 20 years, has just walked out the door to have dinner with some guy. Without any discussion, just walked out. Did she really think I would be okay with that? Did she really think I would just sit at home and wait for her to come back? I don't remember saying anything to her. I feel a cold emptiness forming in my chest. It gradually gets bigger and bigger. Then I am overcome with anger and a rush of adrenaline. I hear screaming and realize it's me. My fists clench, ready to strike, but there is nothing to hit with. I realize it's a fight or flight response. I can't fight, so fleeing is my only option. Where I'm going. What I need to take with me. I need money and clothes. Where to? I'll figure out later. I find myself standing in the kitchen. Why am I here? I stand for a moment and then slowly take off my wedding ring. I set it down on the table. I think about leaving a note, but quickly dismiss the thought. This will say it all. I go to the garage and pull out 2 large suitcases and my Valpak. After packing everything I can think of, I go into the garage and stow it all in my car. I go to my office and gather all my paperwork, my laptop, and my phone charger. I push the garage door opener button and get out. I click it again and drop the remote on the driveway. I won't be needing it again. I pull away, gripping the steering wheel with such force that my knuckles turn white. I reach into my pocket and pull out a money clip. It looks like I had about $50 or $60. I stop at the mini-mart and withdraw the maximum at the ATM. I find a Motel 6 near my office building and check in. As I leave the office, I see Denny's Cafe across the street and realize I haven't eaten since breakfast. I decide to see if I can eat. My stomach is tied in knots, but I have to try. A young blonde woman in a traditional Denny's outfit walks up. Her name tag says, Mona. Hi, what can I get you? Hi, Mona, let's start with a cup of coffee. She comes back with my coffee and I order a patty melt and fries. It tastes like cardboard, but I manage to get most of it down. After another batch of coffee, I pay and leave. I left Mona a $1 tip. I go to my room and turn on the TV. I lie down, resting my head on the armrest. I lay there feeling sorry for myself until I fall asleep. The next morning, I decide to escape for a while and head to our cabin in the mountains. I need some time to think. I call the office and leave a message for Emily, telling her that I'm taking a few days off and that she can call me if something comes up that she can't handle. On the way out of town, I stop by the supermarket. I buy a case of Bud Light and a dozen TV dinners. There's a liquor store nearby, and I buy a bottle of Lord Calvert. Hopefully, this will help defrost the cold spot in my gut. Next chapter. Turning on the main switch, I stow the TV dinners in the fridge. While the DirecTV set-top box boots up, I take all the covers off the furniture. I find the remote and press it. Nothing. I rummage through the junk drawer and find some batteries. Finally, I turn on the TV. I need something to distract me from my cluttered thoughts. I had enough of that on the trip here. I change into my sweatpants and sit down in the chair. CNN is interviewing the police chief about the latest mass shooting. Fox News talking heads are freaking out about the FBI not pressing charges against Hillary over her emails, and MSNBC is interviewing relatives of those killed in the mass shooting. I switch to the movie channels. I walk to the refrigerator and pull out the package and my square bottle. I set them on the coffee table in front of me. 3 sips of hard liquor and a can of beer, and I'm on my way. 3 more and another can of beer, and darkness takes over. The cold spot and the anger goes away. Tina. I told Don not to wait for me, but he just sat there looking at me. I thought, okay, I can handle the silent treatment. Maybe he'll want to talk when I get back. That would be his choice. He won't be silent forever. He'll be hurt, but we'll get through it, and everything will be okay. He will know that he is the love of my life, and I will be the perfect wife for the rest of our lives. I turn and walk out the door. As soon as I pull out of the driveway, I think of Jason. The anticipation of what is about to happen overwhelms me. I park outside the hotel and walk up to the front desk. Jason is standing there smiling from ear to ear. Hi, Tina. You sure look beautiful today. Thanks, Jason. He reaches out and takes my hand and leads me into the restaurant. The host seats us, and the cupbearer appears. He orders champagne. I have to say, Tina, I've been looking forward to this evening. I'm so glad you agreed to meet me. So am I. Dinner and dancing are always on my list of pleasant ways to spend an evening. Things will get much more enjoyable afterward. I guarantee it. We had a nice dinner, and the host seated us next to the dance floor. Jason wastes no time. The band starts a slow song, and he pulls me to the floor. He's a great dancer, and it feels like we're floating on a cloud. 3 songs later, we return to the table. Another bottle of champagne appears, and our glasses are filled. We make light conversation. Let's go up to my room and have another glass. The door to the room closes, and we end up on the bed. Of course, we have fun and later fall asleep. The next morning, I showered, put on a little makeup, and got dressed. As I drive up to the house, I hope he is still asleep and not waiting for me. I won't be able to face him in the state I'm in now. I need to think about what I'm going to say to him. I walk into the kitchen to see if he's sitting there. A glimmer of light on the table catches my attention. I move closer and see him. My consciousness goes into some sort of tilted state. I pull out a chair, sit down, and stare at his ring. No, no. My mind flashes through my head. No, please, no. I didn't dare touch it. I didn't want it to be real. I just sat there and stared at it. I don't know how long I sat like that, looking at the ring. When some semblance of coherent thought returned to it, I got up and went into the bedroom. The bed was still made. I looked in the closet and saw empty hangers. I looked at Dawn's dresser. 2 were lying on the floor, and the other 2 were pulled all the way out. All of them are empty. I fall to the floor and sob. He's gone. The love of my life is gone. I crawl over to the bed and lie down. I grab his pillow and cry into it. I can smell his scent as my tears fall onto it. Dawn. The next morning, I woke up with a beautiful hangover. I looked down and saw that I had thrown up on myself. I was about to give up when an odor reached me. I hurried to the bathroom and got under the shower, clothes and all. I washed most of the vomit down the drain. So much for all my problems. They're still there. I decided to relieve myself. I drank 1 mug of beer to relieve the hangover. I spent the rest of the day sipping beer, watching TV, and feeling sorry for myself. I decided that I had put things off long enough. I needed to move on. Fighting wasn't an option, and neither was running. I couldn't run away from this. I had to face it. Getting drunk wasn't the answer. When I sobered up, the cold spot and the anger were still there. I didn't want to sit idle any longer. I packed my bags and headed back to town. I stopped at a motel and called Emily. Hey, Dawn. How are you doing? I'm a little worried about you. You haven't done anything like this before. Is everything okay? Not really. Tina and I are breaking up. She's found a boyfriend. Oh my God, Dawn. I never would have guessed that. I thought you two had a great marriage. Well, things can change very quickly. I didn't find out until Friday night. I'm wondering if you should be alone at a time like this. If you need me, please let me know. Thank you, Emily. I'm past the self-pity stage. I'm at the Motel 6 on Main Street. I'm going to find a divorce lawyer and start the process. Take as much time as you need. I'll handle everything here until you get back. I'll probably come back tomorrow. You can always call me on my cell phone. It'll be off, but I'll call you back. Goodbye, Dawn. Go easy on yourself. Don't worry, I'll be fine. I decided to call Amy and tell her everything. Hi, how's the best daddy in the world? Not so good, honey. Are you sitting up? Daddy, you're freaking me out. What's going on? I found out Friday night that your mom has a boyfriend. You're scaring me. She wouldn't do anything so stupid. I wish I had. She calmly announced that he'd asked her out to dinner, and the next thing I knew, she was out the door. You're all right. You must be in a lot of pain. I spent a couple days in the cabin. I don't feel sorry for myself anymore. Now it's just anger and resentment. I can't believe she did that to you. I will never speak to her again. It's unforgivable. Okay, stop. Listen to me. This is between your mom and me. She's still your mother, and if you abandon her over this, you'll lose your father too. I will cut you off so fast before you know what's happened. I'll cancel the lease on your car, cancel your credit cards, I won't pay your rent, and your tuition will be your responsibility. You will be on your own. Do you understand me? Dad, that was a terrible thing to do to you. Yes, but she did it to me, not you. You will be her only family after this. You won't take that away from her. You can be angry all you want, but it's nothing more than that. You will not punish her. Do we understand each other? Okay, Dad. I'm just so mad at her that I want to knock some sense into her. I understand. Chill out for a couple days and then call her. I know it'll be hard, but it's the best thing to do. I promise, Dad. You're right. It will be hard, but I'll do it. Thank you, sweetheart. And always remember that I love you and your mom. I love you too. Bye. Bye, Daddy. Next chapter. I contacted an attorney and began divorce proceedings. We discussed proposals and eventually came to a consensus. Tina would get the house, the cabin, and half of our personal savings account. He had me sign receipts disclaiming ownership of both properties. She would get no share in my company. It was a thriving business that was worth much more than both houses. We would both keep our cars, and she would keep her workplace health insurance. I filed the paperwork to pay the attorney fees. I left the filing and serving of the papers up to him. I wanted her to receive the paperwork at home if possible. For some reason, I didn't want to shit in her nest. I just wanted to leave. Tina. I pulled into my driveway and a woman stepped out of a car parked at the curb. Hello, are you Tina Wilson? Yes, what can I do for you? She handed me a manila envelope. You have been served. Have a good day. She turned, walked to her car, and drove away. It wasn't a surprise. I'd been expecting it. Without even opening it, I knew it was divorce papers. I was overcome with guilt, depression, and anger at my stupidity. I went to the kitchen and made my usual coffee. I sat looking at the envelope like a snake ready to strike. Should I hire a lawyer and fight it? Whether I could talk Dawn out of it. Depression took over and I gave up. My stupidity had ruined my marriage and I deserved everything I got. I opened the package and signed without reading anything. I sat with a cup of coffee in front of me and stared at nothing, thinking about how I had ruined my life. If only I hadn't listened to Jen tell us about Jason. She talked with rapt attention about how good she was. I thought about it over and over again, and the more I thought about it, the more I wanted it. My problem was Don, and the fact that I had to either cheat on him or just outright do it. After a week of thinking about it, I decided that I would just do it. Don would forgive me, and we would move on with our lives. I just knew he loved me enough to leave it alone and forgive me. The next morning, I pulled Jen aside. I asked her to invite Jason to have lunch with us so I could get to know him. She knew I was married, but reluctantly agreed. Sure enough, he was handsome and had a great personality. We went to lunch a few times and agreed to meet at the Hilton that Friday. It was the fateful day my marriage fell apart. I sat and went over my failed plan in my head. As I analyzed it, I realized it was so flawed that it would never work. I had to be the stupidest woman on the planet. The first flaw was convincing myself that we would get through this and he would forgive me. The worst flaw was that I didn't think of the worst case scenario. It never occurred to me that he would just leave me. When I saw his ring on the table, I knew he would never forgive me. We would never be together again. I walked slowly to the bedroom, lay down and cried. Don. Over the next few weeks, I had a lot of problems because of the anger, hurt, and sadness I was holding in. I had trouble sleeping, rarely woke up with the morning wood, didn't want to eat, and it was affecting my work. Emily brought this to my attention. Eventually, I gave in to her requests and found a therapist. I started seeing her twice a week. One day, Emily walked into my office with a wide smile on her face. I suspected it was one of her attempts to cheer up the boss a little. Okay, what's with the wide smile? Well, I've been thinking. You're going to be a bachelor in a few months, and there are plenty of single girls around looking for a successful guy like you. You should buy a gym membership and get fit. Yeah, that's just what I need. Out of the frying pan and into the fire. You don't know it yet, but Mother Nature won't let you quit so easily. Your time will come sooner than you expect. You think so, don't you? Yes. I've noticed that some of the single women here have started dressing a little differently than they used to. You'd be a great piece of jewelry. I guess I'll have to publish a memo about the boss being off limits. You know I'm not going to dip my pen in the company ink. Yeah, but we've all got unmarried girlfriends who'd love to get their hands on you. Okay, try to find a gym nearby and sign me up. I'll probably need a trainer too. I agreed, just to stay out of her way. I knew she had my best interests at heart. She walked out the door, shaking her fists. Tina. I definitely wasn't expecting this, but I knew it was coming. The dreaded phone call from Amy. I prayed she wouldn't leave me. I had lost my husband and I was afraid I would lose her too. I had just gotten home from work and then my cell phone beeped. I hesitated, then looked up. Sure enough, it was her. I took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. His voice was full of tension, and we got to talking. She told me that she had promised her father not to abandon or punish me. Mostly, she wanted to know how I was holding up. I assured her that I was doing fine, but I was depressed. I had just made the biggest mistake of my life. Her parting remark told me how she felt. I'm so mad at you for hurting Daddy. How I wish I could have been there to slap you. Goodbye, Mom. She never called me Mom. She always called me Mom. Tears dripped down the phone as I pressed the end call button. For a while, I sat there thanking God that she was still in my life. When we spoke a second time, she started urging me to seek professional help. I realized she was right and agreed to do something about it. I went to my primary care physician, and he put me on antidepressants and recommended a counselor. The antidepressants helped a lot, and I was able to function more or less normally. I was able to work and take care of myself. My health insurance paid for my counseling, and I saw a counselor 3 times a week. She was careful not to make me think I was stupid. She talked about it in softer terms, calling it a mistake. It was a mistake, all right. The biggest one of my life. Dawn. Now that the divorce was finalized, I decided to rent an apartment. I found one a few blocks from my business and signed a month-to-month lease. They wanted to sign a lease, but I threatened to leave and they agreed. I went shopping and bought all the essentials for bachelorhood. I didn't buy top ramen or Campbell's soup. That was enough for me in college. I stocked up on the occasional sandwich, bowl of cereal, and some other liquid. I mostly ate out of the house. Between counseling, working out at the gym, and work, I stayed pretty busy. A few evenings later, I was sitting around watching TV and playing on the computer. I spent quite a bit of time on a poker site I found, playing for play money. I found that I could multitask while playing poker and watching TV. A rumor got around the gym that I was getting a divorce and a few ladies started flirting. I didn't encourage them because I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I never took them up on their offers. I just wasn't ready yet. A not so surprising thing was happening at work. Every few days, a phone number would show up on my desk with a little note. I didn't know who they were coming from, the coworkers or their girlfriends. I would just send them to the trash can. I think Emily was behind most of them, but it was the old-fashioned. Don't ask, don't tell. I noticed one thing that Emily brought to my attention. Some of the ladies at work wore shorter skirts, and I saw a lot more cleavage. I was being looked at with wide smiles. It was good for my ego, but I stayed away from my female coworkers. Tina. The time after signing the divorce papers went better than I expected, until I started my period. To put it mildly, I panicked. Just when I thought I could get my life together, it happened. Grasping at straws, I hoped that the delay was because of everything that had happened. I decided to wait until I was due again. The next due date came, but nothing happened. I bought a test and it came back positive. I became even more depressed. Even the 0.001% chance that Dawn would take me back was now gone. God, how many things I'd done in my life for a cheap thrill that turned out to be completely wrong. I needed serious help. I had a terrible decision to make. Give birth and keep the baby? Give birth and adopt or abort? I dismissed the first option immediately. Then I thought about the second. Would I be able to carry the baby to the end of the pregnancy and then give it up? Would I be able to become attached to it late in the pregnancy and want to keep it? That would put me back to the first option, and I didn't want that. Abortion was an option I really didn't like, but I left it on the table. I wanted to find someone who had already had an abortion that I could talk to. It would give me an idea of what I would have to deal with after the abortion. I decided to talk to my counselor about it. I spent 2 sessions talking about it with my counselor. She told me about some women she knew who had had abortions and what she observed they went through. Some coped fine, some lived with the guilt for years, and one she knew was one who had committed suicide, unable to live with the thought that she had killed a child. I didn't want to deal with that, so I chose to have the baby and give it up. I made an appointment with my primary care physician and had a checkup. He only confirmed that I was pregnant and scheduled an appointment for the following month. Because of my age, he wanted to monitor me closely. I remembered all the things we had done with Amy to ensure a healthy baby. Nothing was the baby's fault, and I wanted him to be healthy for the adoptive parents. Don, my trainer, was a sturdy German guy in his 50s. He had a slight accent and was clearly fit. At first, I thought his plan was to put me in the hospital. If it hadn't been for the hot tub, I would have been there by now. I spent a half hour in it after each session. His favorite phrase was, "You work hard, you get a lot." After 3 weeks, the pain was almost gone, and I noticed a difference. He alternated my workouts using heavy weights in one session and then lots of reps with lighter weights in the next session. Each workout started with a cardio workout. I was losing fat and gaining muscle. At the end of the month, I reached my target weight. He lightened up the heavy exercises, and we worked on relief with more reps with light weights and cardio. Needless to say, I was impressed with my progress. I was starting to get a good six-pack. Things were going great with my counseling sessions as well. The gym classes really helped me with my mental health. I started to feel human again. Anger, resentment, and sadness were quickly fading away. After 6 weeks of working out, Adolf left me with a routine to keep me in shape. I set up a schedule of exercising in the evenings twice a week. When I started working out in the evenings, another group came to me. They were mostly people like me who had jobs to take care of. Another nice thing is that I started to notice that some of the women looked better. I mentioned this to my counselor and she just smiled. She reduced my schedule to once a week. I suspected she would soon release me. I got a call from Amy. Hi, Daddy. Hi, honey. How are you doing? Good. You'll never guess which is which. Okay, then tell me. Mommy's pregnant. Jesus, she is? Yes, she told me this morning. Wow, the gods must be really mad at her. I know. She's handling it pretty well. She's planning on giving it up for adoption. That's probably for the best. I'm a little worried about her having a baby at her age. She's not 20 anymore. Her doctor says it's fine for now. She's a real mom. That's good. Her primary care physician will probably connect her with a good OB/GYN. Oh, and she's putting the cabin and house up for sale. Sounds like she's planning to move. Any word on that? She hasn't said, but I think so too. So, tell me what your plans are for this summer. If you're planning on coming home, I need to move. I live in a small apartment. Things didn't work out with the intern, so I guess I'll move. What about your friend with benefits? I had to let him go. He started making mating noises. I think I'll start looking for a house. Wow, that's a good idea. Buy a house with a pool and a hot tub. When's your last day of school? Next Thursday. It's an afternoon class. Do you need help moving? Oh God, yes. I have too much stuff to cram into the car. Okay, I'll rent a pickup truck and we can rent a trunk for your car. I'll be here with the truck Friday morning. You call the U-Haul company and book a carrier. Get some boxes and pack everything up and get it ready to ship. No problem. Tanya and Ash promised to help me. Okay, I'll see you then. Bye, I love you. I love you too. It took me 3 days to find the house I wanted. It was a 3-bedroom house with a full bath in the master bedroom and a half bath in the 2 spare rooms. The pool was a good size, with a diving board and poles for playing volleyball. The hot tub was large enough to accommodate 6 people. I was going to have to learn how to grill because there was a huge brick barbecue. It seemed like it could serve as a kitchen as well. In the apartment, I used meager equipment. For the house, I would need more. I spent the weekend at the furniture store. Monday, I had to stay home to get everything delivered. I planned to use Amy's decorating skills. I would let her finish everything. I bought a nice 60-inch LG TV that would fit my chair. To finish up, I moved the internet and cable from the apartment to the house. The Thursday before moving day, I rented a pickup truck. I made sure I had an ice chest and a few sandwiches prepared for the trip. I would grab soft drinks and other snacks along the way. Friday morning, I got up at 6 a.m., showered, dressed, and texted Amy that I was leaving. I got the usual okay in response. The trip there and back thankfully went without incident. I like incident-free. We pulled up to the house. Amy grabbed me and pulled me towards the door. Hurry up! I want to see the house. Okay. I unlocked the door and she ran inside. She quickly ran through the rooms and stopped at the back sliding door. Wow, Dad, this is just perfect. This pool is amazing. Oh man. And a hot tub and a barbecue? Great choice. Glad you approved, because you're stuck with it. Now let's unload your stuff. We moved her stuff into the room and I settled into my chair. About half an hour later, I saw her run past in her bathing suit. The sliding door hit the stopper and I heard splashing and squealing. Either she was happy with the pool or the heater wasn't working. I decided to join her and changed into my bathing suit. I made a monster cannonball right next to her and dunked her in. I had to give her a chance to get even. Wow, Dad, you've been working out. Look at you. The ladies are going to love you. Hey, everybody, look at my dad. He's so handsome. Come and get him. Okay, calm down. The neighbors will call the police. Do you have a girlfriend yet? Not yet. I'm still a little skittish. I understand, Dad. Your time will come. Speaking of hot tubs, let's give it a try. She giggled. Apparently, she realized she needed to change the subject. I turned on the jets and we both climbed in. Do you have any plans for the summer? Not really. I was going to call some old friends, maybe hang out with them. You already called your mom. She'll want to see you. I already did. She wants me to go out to dinner tomorrow night. I think she needs to talk. That's great, but I was thinking of something to keep you busy. How about getting an internship at my company? I was thinking of setting you up with Emily. She knows more about it than I do. That's a good idea. After all, I'll get into the business as soon as I graduate. Yeah, sure. I've still got a few more years under my belt. If you decide to do it, you'll need to dress for work. I know you hate shopping, but you'll have to do it. Maybe Emily can help you with that. Wow, that's going to cost you a tidy sum. I'll do it. I hugged her tightly and kissed her. Do you want to go out to dinner tonight? Sure. Where will we go? Let's go somewhere nice. How about Romano's? That's very nice. I think I have a dress that will fit. A former friend of mine with benefits has asked me out a few times. Did you let him off easy? Yeah. He kind of knew I wasn't ready to get married. I just had to remind him of that. He was disappointed but not crushed. Not fit for marriage? Not really. He was a nice guy, but I wasn't in love. I don't think he was either. He was just in love. Oh my goodness. My sweet little daughter stirs up lust in guys. It's genetics. I grew up listening to a lot of moans and groans. That's true. That's the only thing I really miss. That and the loss of a good friend. Did you ever find out why she did it? We didn't talk at all. I think she realized it was over and there was no point. She signed the papers right away and gave them back to my lawyer. Okay, enough of the sad stuff. I'm going to go get ready. You call and make reservations for us. I picked out one of my best suits and started getting ready before Amy did. I didn't have to wait long. She walked in and I just looked at her. She actually had a dress on. She stopped and struck a pose for me. Wow, you look really good. I think my little girl has grown up. Thanks, Daddy. You look really pretty too. Everyone will think you're my sweet daddy. Great, so I'm a dirty old man. I wish I had a big diamond ring on my finger. I guess they'll think what they want. I think so too. Come on, I'm starving. Okay, load up. We pulled into the parking lot, and the young man walked to Amy's door to help her out. I watched his reaction. Her dress was quite short and exposed a lot of leg. The guy didn't miss a thing. I think she even gave him a little luck. I had to chuckle. I handed the owner my black Visa, and he took us to a table. He sat Amy down, and I noticed he checked out her cleavage. I couldn't blame the guy. She showed enough to get his attention. How about a bottle of Dom? Perfect, honey. I almost choked, and she laughed. You're a bad girl. I'm sorry, honey. I couldn't resist. I'm playing your trophy wife. I just shook my head and looked at the menu. Wow, honey. I can see the bandstand. We can dance later. Sure, why not? I still remember a few of the moves. I still remember how to tango. I know it's your favorite. We finished dinner just as the band started to warm up. Next chapter. I put Amy in charge of decorating the house. We needed a lot more than I'd bought. She took my credit card and got to work. The furniture delivery started, and gradually everything fell into place. She did a great job and we settled into the house. She took over running the house, cooking and cleaning. I knew she would make a great wife to some lucky man. One Monday morning, Emily followed me to my office. She set up my schedule for me and the department heads came in for a morning meeting. Emily carefully took notes on her notepad, asking questions as she went along. The meeting ended and I asked her a question. Edda, I've been talking to Amy and I want her to come in and familiarize herself with our work. Would you mind taking her under your wing and showing her around? Sure, but is it just for one day or for the whole summer? Well, I was thinking of doing it for the summer. If you don't agree, I'll think of another way. Sounds like she's serious. I think she is. She said she doesn't have any other plans yet. She's still a whole year away from getting her degree, and I thought a little on-the-job training might help. I don't see any problem. Bring her here and she can get her feet wet. Great. I don't want her in the pool all summer. Don't worry, I'll keep her busy. First things first, I want you to take her shopping. She doesn't have any business clothes, but I don't want her dressed so that all the guys here are hitting on her. Ha! Then I'll dress her in a burqa. She's a beautiful woman. They'll stare no matter what. I could put up a memo. Don't molest my daughter. Just stop it. I'll handle the clothes. She'll deal with the guys on her own. Okay, she's in your capable hands. I'll call her. We can start tonight. You're in charge until I get back. I handed her the company credit card. Let the accounting department handle it. She walked out the door waving her fist. Yes, shopping. I got home in the evening, and as soon as I walked in the door, the smell of food wafted over me. Hi, honey, I'm home. Amy giggled, hugged me, and kissed my cheek. Dinner's almost ready. You have time to take a shower. I reached the living room and stopped. The couch and chair were littered with bags of clothes, shoe boxes, and lots of little bags. The labels said it all. Holy shit, Amy. You bought out an entire store? Well, we did load up on their stock. I put all the blame on Emily. She picked out all the stores. Well, you'll certainly be dressed for success. Like they say, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. I knew Tuesday was going to be an interesting day. Amy was supposed to show up an hour after me. She was in the bathroom putting on makeup when I got ready to leave. I knocked on the door. She came out and I had to grin. She was only wearing part of her makeup. I'm off to the salt mines. I'll see you there. Okay, I'll see you in an hour. I'm all excited for today. It's my first day and everything has to be perfect. Just relax. Everything's going to be fine. I kissed her on the cheek and left. Emily and I met up and discussed my schedule for the day. I looked at my watch and saw that it was already 10 to 8. I stood in the doorway of my office and waited for Amy to show up. At 5, she walked in. She looked me in the eye but quickly averted her gaze and found Emily. All eyes were fixed on her. She was dressed as the quintessential businesswoman. She and Emily had expertly chosen her closet. The other women sat a little straighter and touched their hair to make sure it was perfect. Before the situation got out of hand, Emily walked her around the room and introduced her as the new intern. The tension returned to normal. I had to chuckle. No one knew she was my daughter. I wanted it to stay that way for as long as possible. I went back to my office and pounced on the inevitable pile of papers. Next chapter. On Friday, I called Emily into my office. Okay, get in here. How's she doing? No whitewashing. Pretty good for a third-year business student. She's absorbing everything like a sponge and asking good questions. I'm impressed. Excuse me while I make my dad proud. Emily walked out, giggling to herself. I pulled up the file with the specs for the wind machine company we had just acquired. They wanted us to build the drive mechanisms for their giant machines. Emily called me over the intercom. Janet is here, Dawn. Okay, send her over. Janet is in sales for a company that supplies us with metal billets. She took good care of us since we were one of her biggest customers. We used her products in production, testing, and prototypes. Janet, come on in. It's good to see you again. Hi, Dawn. Just came by to see how things are going. We went through all the orders for the last 2 weeks. She wanted to know if there had been any problems. I assured her that everything was fine. Then I remembered what Amy had said to me the night we danced. I needed a girl. Janet was a pretty redhead. Shortly after she got our account, I noticed she was a little flirty. I decided to make a move. I had known her long enough to realize that we could share business and pleasure. Her company was the perfect supplier for us, and there was no danger of them losing our account. Well, we've got the business sorted out. What are you going to do tonight at dinner? I haven't any definite plans. Do you have anything in mind? We both smiled. She knew. Where are you staying? I'm at the Holiday Inn. Okay, let's meet there, say around 6. I'll even buy you a drink. Wow, how can I turn down a free dinner? I sent Amy a text. No dinner, taking your advice. Her response was okay, with a big smiley face. A little after 5, Emily walked into my office. I've already built up my energy for the weekend. Is there anything you need to do before I leave? Nothing that I can think of. Have a good weekend. She smiled understandingly and said, You too. No secrets around here, huh? Not many. She turned and walked out. I went to what I call my cubby hole. It's a half bath with a small closet. I keep spare clothes in there, just for times like this. I took a quick shower, shaved, and got dressed. I thought about rubbing one on, but decided to save it for Janet. If I didn't get laid tonight, it would be my own fault. I suspected she knew from the grapevine that I was getting a divorce. At the last minute, I checked my desk and headed out. I got to the Hilton 15 minutes before 6. I took a seat at the bar, ordered a square bottle of rocks, and waited. I saw her walk in and my eyes got big. She was wearing a lime green halter top. The skirt was short, flared, reaching to about mid-thigh. The dress was accompanied by sheer shorts and green shoes. In a word, she was hot. As she stepped closer, I stood up. Holy shit, Janet, you look amazing. Clearly better than in your work clothes. Thanks, Dawn. I thought you'd like it. She took my hand and we headed into the dining room. The host seated us, and I held out my Visa card to him. Write down the bill, please. Very good, sir. Your server will be right with you. Thank you. Well, Dawn, everything is already known about you. Word? Yes. Word is you're getting a divorce and working out at the gym. Is that all? There's more, but I can give away my source. Huh. I already know your source, but I won't give her away either. The server appeared, and we discussed the menu. She agreed that a bottle of Dom would be just right. We placed our order, and the cupbearer poured our drinks. I raised my glass and said, I've heard that champagne makes women's clothes fall off. Is that true? Would you like to know a little secret? Sure, tell me. I promise not to tell. You don't need champagne with me. I've wanted you since I first saw you. I knew you were married, so I didn't make a move. Now I can't wait to see how all that time in the gym has gone for you. Can you keep it under control until we eat? I skipped lunch today. I've waited that long. Another hour doesn't matter. Do you mind if I ask, why aren't you married? There must be a bunch of guys after you. I was married when I started in sales. I traveled so much that my old man started flirting with me. I didn't want to quit my job, so we split up. I didn't want to try again and have it happen all over again, so I stayed single. I understand. That's what ended my marriage, except I wasn't on the road. I never found out, but she must have found something she wasn't getting at home. I think your marriage was harder to get over than mine. It was hard. I was treated by a psychiatrist for a long time. Thank goodness it's all behind me now. She was good and put my thoughts in order. The waiter appeared with the food and the conversation ended. While we were eating, she asked, You have a daughter. Tell me about her. She's a beautiful brown-eyed college girl. She's studying business. She told me she wants to run my company when she graduates. She sounds like a smart girl. You have a great business. You're my biggest client. She's smart. It's a secret, but she's working as an intern this summer. Emily is taking her under her wing. We finished dinner and I asked, Should we order another bottle of Dom? Let's send her to my room. Yes, let's go. I ordered another bottle and signed the bill. She took my hand and we headed for the elevator. As soon as the door closed, we got down to it. Next chapter. It was about 10 in the morning when I finally made it home. Sure enough, Amy was at the pool. I headed for the hot tub. Amy watched me get out. Hey, Dad. Looks like you had a good time last night. Did you at least have dinner? Yeah, Janet and I had dinner at the Hilton. Who's Janet? She's a sales rep for Acme Metals. She services our account with them. Yeah, You handled your account last night. I guess you could say that. We had a good time. Good for you, Dad. It's about time. How are things going with you and Emily? She's great. I think she's getting everywhere on time. Yes, that's why she's so valuable to me. I never worry if I need to be away for a day or two. Did she give you a report on me? Yes. She said you absorb everything like a sponge. She's impressed, considering you're in your third year of business school. I think I'm going to enjoy working there. I've met so many nice people. Have they realized you're my daughter yet? I don't think so. No one has mentioned it. Try to keep it that way. They might treat you differently if they found out. I will. By the way, Dad, how long has it been since you've had a vacation? You know, a real one, not just a weekend. Probably a couple years, why do you ask? I think you should take one, maybe for 2 weeks, to lay in the sun and drink pina colada. You think so, don't you? Where would I go? Maybe the Bahamas, Cancun, Aruba, or Hawaii? Sounds like fun. I'll think about it. Are you planning to come with me? No. I just started a new job and I don't have a vacation yet. You poor thing. Working and slaving away. Yes, you poor thing. I'm going to take a nap. I'll see you later. Yeah, you probably need a rest after last night. I just looked at her and went to my bedroom. Monday morning, I finished my morning routine with Emily and the department heads. I thought about what Amy had mentioned. It had been a long time since I had taken a real vacation. The last time I was with Tina was 2 years ago. We spent 2 weeks vacationing in Hawaii. I decided to go on vacation. Emily, come into my office, please. Yes, Don. What's up? Amy and I have been talking about taking a vacation. She wants me to lie in the sun for 2 weeks. Any ideas about that? I hear Aruba is really nice. Okay, book me a hotel and fly out this Saturday. That's a great idea. I think you'll like Aruba. Betty from HR went there last year. She said it was great. I'm going to Aruba. Next chapter. I sat and watched out the window as Aruba approached. We made a circle and made a perfect landing. I got lucky and found my luggage. It was on the same airplane as mine. I took a shuttle to the hotel Emily had booked. The bellhop unpacked my luggage and I thanked him and high-fived him. I stripped down to my boxer shorts and laid down for a nap. At 6 o'clock, I found myself at the restaurant with a pina colada and a menu in hand. A great start to a 2-week vacation. Table for one. I finished my dinner and headed to the bar. I spotted the dance floor, but the dance band hadn't shown up yet. I switched to beer and looked around the place. It was mostly couples, but a few pairs of ladies occupied a few tables. On the second beer, the band showed up and did a little warm-up. I started looking for a dance partner. When the first song came on, all the ladies without partners huddled around the bachelor party line. I mentally noted that I would have to be fast to get a dance. After the band played about 4 slow songs, the stag line looked like it was exhausted, and most of the unaccompanied ladies sat on the sidelines. Apparently, you can't always be first with the majority. I spotted a pretty girl. She looked to be in her early 30s. I approached her and asked her to dance. She said yes. It was a slow number, so we had time to chat. Her name was Betty, and she was from San Francisco. She worked as a secretary for a stockbroker. As we danced, she tried to keep her distance, and I left her after one dance. It was like dancing with my sister. I decided to have another beer, and if things didn't improve, go back to my room. I danced with 2 more women, and it was the same as the first time. As I was walking back to my room, it dawned on me that I might be the problem. I had been away from the so-called dating scene for so long that I didn't know how to nail it. I decided to just relax and let things happen. I would wait and see what attracted me. The next day after breakfast, I decided to take Emily's advice and get some sun. I walked down to the beach and found an umbrella and a couple lounge chairs. Looking around, I saw a small bar located nearby. I grabbed a pina colada and a bottle of sunscreen. I was lying there, admiring the women frolicking in the surf, and noticed a pretty girl by an umbrella 25 yards away. I had my girl watching watch on, so I examined her closely. She was blonde with very fair skin. I decided to go for a little run. I didn't feel like taking a break from my exercise routine for 2 weeks. I walked down to the hard sand and started a fast run. When I got to what I thought was about 2 miles, I turned around and started walking back. The last 100 yards I went at a full sprint. I went back to my umbrella, took off my shirt and shoes. I jogged to the water and swam a few yards to cool off. After swimming in the water for a few minutes, I swam back and parked myself under the umbrella. I looked at the blonde, and I thought I smiled slightly. Of course, thoughts of the dirty old man flashed through my mind. I slathered on some sunscreen and lay in the sun. I quickly got hot, so I pulled myself together and went back to the room. I didn't want to fry on my first day in the sun. I took a nap and went downstairs to eat. With a nice filet mignon, baker's pie, and salad in my stomach, I wanted to go back to the room. I didn't bother with the bar anymore. I watched a couple of movies and dozed off. The next morning, I had breakfast and went downstairs to get my umbrella. As I approached, I noticed a blonde woman sitting at the table next to mine. When I sat down, she looked up at me and I saw a slight smile. A few guys started talking to her, but after a few words, they left. While she swam, I grabbed a cold one. I finished my beer and stood up. I'm going to the bar to get another drink. Can I get you one? She hesitated for a few seconds. Yes, please. Get me one of the ones with the little umbrella. I can never remember the name of them. I'll get it right away. The bartender smiled at my order. I watched him prepare something with rum. I went back and set down her drink. Here you go. One umbrella drink? Be careful. I saw him add rum to it. It's probably something of that 150 strength stuff. Thank you. You're so kind to bring me a drink. Why don't you join me? My pleasure. Thank you. I saw the engagement ring and almost walked away. With my past, the last thing I wanted to do was get involved with a married woman. For a few seconds, I thought about leaving, but decided a harmless chat wouldn't hurt and stayed. My name is Ingrid. What's yours? You can call me Dawn. It's very nice to meet you. What brings you to Aruba? Long story short, I'm celebrating my divorce. My daughter said I should lie in the sun and drink pina colados, so here I am. What kind of business do you run? I own a robot manufacturing company. We make high-speed robots, milling machines, CNC machines, and 3D printers. Robots like R2-D2? I grinned. No, they're used in manufacturing. Sounds interesting. Tell me what brings you here. I see a wedding ring, but I don't see a husband. We're vacationing separately. He's in Italy for 2 weeks. We live in Minnesota, and I like to come here because of the warm climate. I was quickly interested. Separate vacations. That sounds interesting. Do you do that often? Usually once a year. Sven goes to Italy. He likes chubby women with hairy legs. I don't know if I can take it. I got divorced because of an unfaithful wife. I guess I'm just a regular old-fashioned guy. One woman at a time. It's not for everyone, I'm sure. What about you? What kind of men do you like? I don't know you well enough to tell you that. Maybe later I will. Did you mention your daughter? Yes, it was definitely a change of subject. We weren't going to go there yet. My daughter, Amy. She's in college right now, just finished her junior year. 1 more year to go. What's she studying? She's studying business. She says she wants to run my company when she graduates from college. To continue the family business, huh? That's her plan. What do you and your husband do? He's an investment broker. He likes to play with other people's money. And you? Do you work? No, I just spent his money. I had to laugh. I've been thinking. Maybe we could meet for dinner and dance a little tonight. I've been told I'm a pretty good dancer. I like that idea. How about 7? Great. Okay, I'll see you then. I feel myself starting to doze off. This tropical sun is pulling all the fire out of me. Thanks for the drink. I'll see you at 7. I showed up at the restaurant about 15 minutes early. I slipped the owner a 20 and told him I was going to meet the most beautiful blonde on the planet, and that after we ate, we wanted a table near the dance floor. He smiled, and my 20 disappeared. When she walked in, a lot of the conversation stopped and looks went out for her. Several guys received hard elbow blows to the ribs from their wives. I stood up and she put her arms around me. The owner pulled out a chair and sat her down. I slipped him my credit card and managed to get to my chair without falling over. I looked at her and all I could say was, "Wow." She giggled. "You look ravishing today." "Thanks, Don. That's always nice to hear." The cub bearer came over and I ordered a bottle of Dom. "Oh my champagne, excellent choice." We discussed the menu and settled on prime rib for both of us. I wasn't sure, but figured champagne went well with any meal. We sipped and chatted until our food arrived. As we ate, the conversation lengthened. We finished and I signaled to the host. He took us to a table and removed the reserved sign. I ordered another bottle of Dom. While we waited for the champagne, I asked Ingrid if she liked a tango. She only smiled. When the cub bearer brought our bottle, I handed him a 20 and told him to give it to the group leader and ask for a tango. We took a sip each, and I pulled her to the floor. I had always considered myself a pretty good dancer. I wondered how good Ingrid was. I soon found out. The first dance was slow and she moved into my arms. "Now will you answer my question?" "Which one?" "I asked you what kind of man you like for a change." "Oh yes, I remember." "I like a man with dark hair, a little gray in his sideburns, and a strong jaw. He has to be tall enough for me to wear my 5-inch heels." The orchestra began to dance the tango I had requested. We moved back and forth, picking up the rhythm. I was putting my best foot forward, and she didn't miss a step. The song ended, and I led her back to the table. "I don't want to waste any more of my vacation. Let's go to my room." The doors closed, and we were alone. The next morning, we decided to take an excursion. There, we were informed that the tour shuttle leaves every hour. We signed up. It turned out that we couldn't tour the entire island. Almost everything was on the southwest side, so we went up and back down. All in all, an hour was wasted. Back at the counter, we asked what tourist activities they offered. We opted for a snorkeling expedition. This turned out to be a much better experience. We learned that the Southern Caribbean is home to many beautiful tropical fish. We soon learned that most of the tourist activity is nightlife. We did get a good massage and learned how bad we were at golf. We started hitting the nightclubs at the various hotels. They say time flies fast when you're having fun. And they were right. The next morning, I went with her to the airport. We checked her luggage and found a Starbucks with small tables. We sat on opposite sides and I held her hand. We had a little time until she had to go through security. "You know, in another time and on another planet, I think we could have made a great couple." I had to keep pinching myself, reminding myself that all we could be is friends with benefits. "I know. I was thinking the same thing, but I have a husband and friends to get back to, and you have a business to run and a daughter to finish college." We chatted some more, and then she looked at her watch and smiled at me. "I should get going." "Okay, let's not make this a tearful long goodbye. One last thing. Can I take a picture of you? Just as a memento of a wonderful vacation." She giggled. "Okay, just one." I opened my phone and took a full-length picture of her. "Thank you. I'm happy now. You have my number. If you're ever in the area, give me a call and we can at least have lunch." "Who knows? I get out to the coast every now and then." "Goodbye, Ingrid. I had a wonderful time. You're an amazing woman and you're very lucky to have a husband." "Goodbye, Don. Good luck to you in the future. Remember, there is one out there that is meant just for you. Don't stop looking." Another quick kiss, and I turned and walked away. It was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. A few tears ran down my cheeks as I walked back to catch a cab. On the way to the hotel, I thought about how there was no reason for me to stay here anymore. I knew I wouldn't find a woman who could compare to Ingrid in the remaining 2 days. I decided to leave the next morning. Next chapter. We landed in Dallas, and I boarded a flight to Los Angeles. When I got to LA, I had about an hour to wait for the Southwest flight to San Diego, so I called Emily to meet me when I arrived. I didn't want to call Amy and reveal her secret. Emily started questioning me about what had happened. I told her that I had to hurry to get through security, and I would give her all the details when she picked me up. There was a long line at security, but I made it to my flight. Emily met me at the airport, and of course she had 1,000 questions. She tried to ask them all while we waited for my luggage. Of course, my luggage ended up getting lost. On the way home, I briefly told her about my trip. She wouldn't leave my side until I told her I slept with her. Then she got excited. The business fell apart while I was gone? Ha ha. You should get away more often. We got 3 new clients. They want to reconfigure their production lines. The engineers are already there, getting all the specs ready. Great. You know I trust you a lot. They have a printer that does in-house. They finally got the cement mix right. The contractor is testing it now. He likes it a lot so far. It cuts construction time in half. I knew I could count on you. Sometimes I think you know more about this business than I do. We pulled up to my house and I got out of the car with my bag. Maybe I'll come by tomorrow. We'll see how bad the jet lag is. Okay, goodbye, Don. I'm really glad you had a good time. I went into the kitchen and put the coffee maker on. I really needed a nice cup of good homemade brew. I felt human again. There was nothing better than coming home. With a full thermos mug, I sat down at my desk at work. I started my computer and opened my inbox. I spent the next hour deleting and replying to important emails. I closed the email page and leaned back in my chair. Ingrid popped into my mind. My heart beat faster as I remembered the wonderful time I had spent with her. I opened the picture I had on my phone and just stared at it. Thoughts were running through my mind. If only this, and if only that. She really made an impression on me, but it just wasn't meant to be. I went into the living room and turned on the TV. Poking around on the internet, I found a rerun of the game I wanted to watch. I pulled the lever of my chair and leaned back. I sat and went over every minute I had spent with Ingrid. Memories of leaving her at the airport came flooding back to me. I knew I had to let her go. I'd never see her again, except in my mind. I must have dozed off because I woke up in surprise when I heard the garage door open. Amy was home. I got up just as she entered the room. Dad, you're home. You're home. Hi, honey. I just got here a little while ago. She jumped into my lap, hugged me, and kissed me. Let me get changed and you can tell me about your vacation. I want to know all the details. Okay, I'll pour you some coffee. It's only an hour away. Okay, I'll be right back. I poured her coffee and leaned back in my chair. I knew what she wanted to know. It would probably be her second or third question. She returned, dressed in her usual t-shirt and shorts. Okay, tell me everything. Why don't you just ask questions and I'll do my best to answer them? Okay, did you stay in a nice hotel? It was very nice. It was the Marriott Aruba. Emily picked it out. I think it was 5-star. Did you meet anyone special? Yes, I met someone special. What's her name? Her name is Ingrid. She's from somewhere in Minnesota. She was beautiful. I bet she was blonde. Probably Norwegian. I think so. Her husband's name was Sven. Married? You got involved with a married woman? It's not what you think. She's married, but they're vacationing separately. Oh my. Swinger, huh? I don't know about that. I didn't ask and she didn't tell me. I think it was more of an annual thing. She said he liked the chubby, hairy legs of Italians. Ooh, hairy legs. So gross. You. Yeah, I agree. Maybe hairy pits too. Someone like that would be the complete opposite of Ingrid. I'd like to meet her, but it'll probably never happen. I doubt that either. She seemed happily married. Do you have a picture of her? I opened my phone and held it out to her. Here it is. Wow, Dad, she's really beautiful. You're really lucky. She fiddled with the picture, examining it. She could have been a movie star. Okay, enough about that. What are we having for dinner? How about pizza and a nice red wine? Sounds good. Call. Over pizza, we chatted about how things were going with Emily and whether she wanted to work here when she graduated. She told me about the high school friends she'd dated and the guys who hit on her. You mentioned the guys who hit on you. I have a strict rule. Don't date anyone from work ever. It's a rule I always enforce. Okay, I can see that. A few people have been checking up on me. I don't doubt it. If any of them start pressuring you, I want to know. They'll get one warning, and then it's business as usual. Are employees allowed to see each other? Sure, but you and I aren't. If they want to date, that's fine. Sometimes it can be a problem if employees date, because if they break up, usually one or the other gets fired. I select my employees very carefully, and I don't want to lose them over something like this. I understand, Dad. It's a good policy, and no one is pressuring me. I'm curious. Does anyone at work besides Emily know you're my daughter? I don't think so. She told me not to mention it. Our last name is so common that they haven't put two and two together yet. That's okay, but it's better if they don't find out. If someone asks, you can wave the question away. I understand what you're trying to say. I won't tell anyone. I have some plans for you after graduation. I want to make Emily my personal assistant, and you can start working as her secretary. That way, everything she does will come across your desk as well. And after a while, I'll be moving you around all the departments. It might turn up some people's noses, but they'll be able to put up with it. Emily is a really good employee and knows how to explain things. I can see why you rely on her so much. She makes my job so much easier. That's why I pay her so well. I don't want anyone stealing her. We finished eating and Amy picked up the remote. Of course, she chose a chick flick movie. I dozed through the whole movie, but finally gave up and went to bed. Next chapter. Things were going well over the summer, both in business and in my personal life. We were bringing in new clients, and I was just about ready to look for another building. Emily wanted to hold off because a few clients were due to fall off in September. I took her advice. Things were working out for Amy. She really liked working for me. Emily had nothing but praise for her. She met a friend of a friend of a friend, and he became her friend with benefits. I met him, and he seemed like a nice guy, but I could see that he was not the right mister for her. I guess my dream of grandchildren will have to wait until after high school. My life was going about as well as one could expect from a single guy. Janet came to visit me every 2 weeks, and we had Friday night get-togethers. Things went smoothly for about 4 weeks, and then she started canceling several times. I saw her change. She became emotionally distant. I think she fell in love with me and had to let it go. By mid-August, things were back to normal. I was fine with that because I picked up a couple buddies at the gym. At the end of August, Amy had to go back to school. I helped her move all of her stuff except for the work suits she and Emily had bought. She shared an apartment with Ash and Tanya, two of her buddies. It took me a while to get used to living alone again. I missed my little simpering Amy. I started spending more time at work and at the gym to pass the time. I heard about Tina from Amy. She rented out both the cabin and the house. I knew she would be leaving soon. Her pregnancy was going well, despite her age. The information from Amy about her mother was slowly fading away. I knew Amy was in touch with her, but she was talking less and less about her to me. That was fine with me. One day in November, I drove by Tina's house and saw that the realtor's in process sign was gone. I guessed she had closed. I wondered if she would call me when she was going out of town. Turns out she didn't. Amy told me she moved to Seattle at the end of September. I never heard a word from her. She probably didn't want me to see her with her pot belly. After the move, Amy never mentioned her again. Next chapter. In late March, I sat at my desk, buried in papers. My cell phone buzzed. I looked at the caller ID and almost peed my pants. I took a deep breath and pressed the answer button. Ingrid, is that really you? Hi, Don. Yes, it's me. This is a pleasant surprise. What's going on? Well, I'm at the Los Angeles airport, waiting for my luggage. I see. What brings you to Los Angeles? Let's call it the destination of my decision. I don't understand. This is where I have to make my decision. I'm calling you to see if you're involved with someone. If so, I'm going to Hawaii. If not, then I'd like to come to you. Uh, I think I understand. Why don't you put Hawaii on hold, go down to the Southwest Airlines terminal and get your ticket? I'll be waiting for you and meet you at the airport. Okay, as soon as I get my luggage. I'm really looking forward to seeing you. I can't believe this is happening. I didn't expect to ever hear from you again. Me neither. And we have a lot to talk about. Yes, we have a lot to talk about. Now hurry up and get on the plane. I'll be waiting for you. Bye, Don. Bye, Ingrid. I pressed the end call button and let out a battle whoop. Emily ran into my office. Dawn, there's nothing wrong with you. What was that? You're not going to believe this. Do you remember that girl I met in Aruba? I think I do. Her name was Ingrid? Yes, and she's on her way to San Diego right now. She just called me. Things are getting interesting around her. I guess we won't see each other for a few days. Right. I let you know. We haven't talked much on the phone. As soon as I find out, you'll know. From the look of you, you might as well head home. You'll be of no use for the rest of the day. All right, please call Southwest Airlines and book Ingrid Jorgensen on a flight from Los Angeles to here. Okay, now get out of here. I'll take care of the paperwork on your desk. I grabbed my coat and hurried toward the exit. Of course, I started thinking about all the possibilities involving Ingrid. Everything was swirling around in my head. I managed to get home without killing anyone. Emily texted me the flight number and arrival time. I swept through the house, packing up my things, and started the vacuum cleaner. All the dirty dishes went into the dishwasher. I checked the hot tub to make sure the water was hot. Dirty clothes went into the washer, and I put clean linens on the bed. I changed into my casual clothes and left the house. On the way out, I hit a traffic jam near exit 125. I thought to hell with it, drove on the side of the road and took that exit. When I got onto Interstate 94, I was struggling to keep my speed up, so I took a few deep breaths to calm down. I got to the airport and parked at the curb. A security guard came up and made me move into the parking lot. As I drove to the parking lot, I wondered if his parents were married. I found her standing by the baggage carousel. I walked up behind her. Hey, baby girl, want some candy? She turned around and hugged me tightly. She didn't say anything, just snuggled tiredly against me. Of course, I was helping. She looked up at me and I saw tears in her eyes. I kissed her and gave her another hug. I was panting so hard I couldn't say anything. I couldn't believe how good she felt in my arms. All the memories of our time in Aruba were surfacing and bubbling up in my head. My eyes glazed over, as did hers. Finally, we untangled ourselves and waited for her luggage. Ingrid, you have no idea how happy I am to see you. I know, Dawn. I feel the same way. I have a lot to tell you. She blotted her eyes with a tissue. Then she smiled and blotted mine. Wait until we get in the car. You do the talking and I'll drive. She clutched lethally at my arm, and we headed to my car. I loaded all my stuff and left the cart standing. I drove out of the airport, and she began her story. Okay, here's the thing. I went home and visited the doctor. It was one of our rules before we started vacationing separately. Sven called and said he wanted to stay another week. My antenna immediately went up. I knew something bad was going on. He didn't say why he was staying. He just said he'd explain everything when he got home. 5 days later, he came home and said he wanted a divorce. He had met someone and fell in love. By then, I wasn't surprised anymore. It was just as I thought it would be, and I had a little time to prepare myself so the shock wasn't as bad. But even knowing it was going to happen, it still hurt. He told me that he brought her with him, and she would be staying at the hotel until we got things settled. We settled the details and his lawyer filed papers with the court. He moved into the hotel with his woman, and I stayed in the apartment until it was over. When it was over, he admitted that he had been flying here 3 or 4 times a year for the last 2 years. I had no indication that he was cheating on our agreement. He bought out my share of the condominium, and I moved into a small apartment to plan my future. The first thing I thought of was you, but I had to wait a while before I got over him. I didn't want to take on some of my misery and possibly bring it down on you. When I was sure I was ready, I flew to Los Angeles and called you. I don't mean to pry, but financially you've been doing okay? Actually, things were better than okay. You see, Sven had an amazing ability to pick out good investments. He was like a psychic. He'd leave his personal laptop at home, so I'd get a little peek at what he was doing. At first, I just invested small amounts through another broker. As time went on, I invested larger and larger amounts. When the amount reached $100,000, I realized that I would be paying a lot of taxes on the profits. I went online and created an offshore corporation. I transferred my entire portfolio there. A few of my investments didn't work out, but on average I was doing well. When we divorced, my fortune was $1.2 million. Sven didn't know about my trades. It was my fun little secret that I kept from him. Turns out he was worth a lot more than that, and his money was offshore too. We sorted out the assets we had in the States like a court would. Our offshore stuff we put into one pile and divided it up. I ended up with a little over $3 million. So all in all, I did pretty good. We're doing a kind of confession thing here. You want to know a little more about my breakup? I know there's a lot I didn't tell you in Aruba. It's not hard for me to tell you. It's a story now. It's up to you if you want to know. I don't need to know. It's just like you said. It's all history now. Okay, but there's something I want you to know. When I left you at the airport that day, it was all I could do to hold myself together. I wanted to turn around and hug you again, but I knew I couldn't. I knew you had to leave and there was nothing I could do about it. I actually cried on the way back to the hotel. I left the next day. It took a while, but I had to accept that I would never see you again. I guess my reminders that we were just friends with benefits weren't convincing enough. It took a while, but I managed to hide the memories in a special place in my heart. I knew I had to move on. When you called, it all came back. I'm glad you still have feelings for me. I went through the same thing. We probably affected each other more than we'd like to admit. In fact, realizing that you might be around helped me get over the breakup with Sven. You had a big impact on Amy, too. I showed her a picture of you. She thought you could be a movie star. Yes, in my dreams. Speaking of Amy, when can I meet her? In person, probably at Easter. If you want, we can chat on Skype. Skype? Is that the kind of video chat? Yeah, it's great. It's like being in the same room. Okay, let's do that. It's more personal than a phone call. I turned onto my street and pulled into the driveway. I flicked the remote and pulled into the garage. Here we are. Come on in and look around while I unload your stuff, okay? I can't wait to see everything inside. It looks so nice from the outside. It's so different from what I'm used to. No elevator, no doorman, no parking. What's the name of this town? It's Alpine, sort of like a bedroom community for the rest of the county. We got out of the car and I opened the door for her. 4 trips later, I looked around and found her standing in the back lot. Well, what did you think? Oh my goodness. Your house is beautiful. It's so warm and cozy. I had Amy decorate the house. She did a great job. Yeah, she did great. I can't wait to try out the pool and hot tub. The pool is heated, so we can use it any time of year. It's just that you'll have to rush back inside in the winter. Oh my goodness. This is heaven. Whoever came up with this was a genius. I could stay here forever. Let's go see if Amy's around. It's time for her to meet you in person. We went into my office and I started up my computer. Ingrid stood next to me and watched me. I started up Skype and set up my webcam. I sent Amy a message. Skype. She replied with her usual, okay. A few minutes later, her face appeared on my monitor. She set up the webcam and sat back down. Hi, my favorite daddy. What's going on? Hi, sweetie. I have a little surprise for you. Oh, great. I love surprises. Remember when I was in Aruba, I told you that I met a very unusual woman? Yes, her name was Ingrid. I reached out and placed Ingrid in my lap. Meet Ingrid. I watched as her mouth opened. Her mind tried to comprehend what she was seeing. She brought her hand up to her mouth. Hi, Amy. It's so nice to finally meet you. Dad. Ingrid? Oh my goodness, it's you two. Ingrid, you're here, I mean there. I don't know what I mean. My God, I can't believe it. You're together. She squealed, got up and ran around the chair. She sat back down. Oh my God, I'm so happy for you guys. I'm going to pee my pants. This really happened. Yeah, it really happened. She came in this morning. Holy shit. I have a million questions. Tanya, Ash, come and have a look. My dad has a girlfriend. Come and see. Two faces came into view. Hi, Dawn. Hi, Ingrid. Nice to meet you. Wow, Dawn. You're really lucky. Ingrid, you're so beautiful. I guess I'm the lucky one. Hey, we're both lucky. I'm so happy for you two. Never in my wildest dreams did I think this would happen. I didn't think either, honey. She just called out of the blue and here she is. Oh my God. I just realized I'm going to have a stepmother. Ah, wait a minute. Don't get ahead of yourself. She just got here. Huh. I can tell by looking at you two. It's going to happen. I just know it. Ingrid didn't say a word. She just leaned over and kissed my cheek. Ha, Dad. You're done for. You don't stand a chance. I can see the big hook in your mouth. I'm so happy. You two really hit it off. What a wonderful day. I have to agree with you. I can't wait for Easter. Ingrid, we'll definitely go shopping. I know all the good stores. Sounds like fun. There's no such thing as too much shopping. We should get going. I've introduced her to the hot tub. Now it's time for the pool. Bye, honey. Bye, Daddy. Bye, Ingrid. See you at Easter. I closed Skype and shut down the computer. And for the rest of the week, I took her around the city like we were tourists. We went to Balboa Park and walked around it. We toured the USS Midway, went to Legoland and the zoo. UCSD had a pretty good theater program, so we saw some plays and of course went to the beach. She really liked the Gaslight District. Some of the best restaurants are located there. Dinner and dancing were on our entertainment list. I took her to the Mercedes dealer and leased a car for her. She was a little wary of driving on the famous California freeways, so she just followed me all the way home. I drove safely in the right lane. The rest of the time I had her drive while I navigated. After a few times, she gained confidence and did fine. Unfortunately, our little honeymoon had to end, and I had to go back to work. I didn't want to abuse the relationship with Emily. She did everything I asked, but it wasn't fair if she did her job and I did mine. On Monday, I went to work. Of course, everything was fine. She was doing a great job as always. She didn't ask many questions about Ingrid and me, but she knew from the smile on my face that everything was fine. Coming to Ingrid's house every night was easy and familiar. Next chapter. Amy came home for Easter vacation, and she and Ingrid bonded in 2 minutes. I barely interfered with their relationship. I hid at work, and they did every girly thing they could think of. I don't know which one of them came up with the idea, but they colored Easter eggs and I had to hunt for them. They had a good laugh as I wandered around the backyard holding my little red and pink basket. We flew to Amy's graduation ceremony. Along with 3 other graduates, she had received the award for the highest GPA in her business classes. Of course, I was a proud papa. I had to rent a truck again, and back they drove back together in Amy's car. Once she got home, she found an apartment, and they spent a week getting her settled in there. Once again, I didn't get involved. Amy went back to work, and 2 weeks later it was revealed that she was my daughter. It went well because everyone remembered her from last summer. An interesting thing happened to Amy. One of our orders from Acme Metals was very unsuccessful, and the vice president of sales showed up to fix the problem. He met Amy at one of our meetings. After the meeting, they disappeared, and the next night they went out to dinner. It turned out that his father was the owner of the company. I started teasing her about the merger. As it turned out, they dated for about 6 months, and she proposed to me. She said yes, and I placed an order for 3 grandchildren. Amy offered to have a double wedding, but Ingrid and I declined. We discussed it, but we both felt it was too soon. To get even for our refusal, she started calling Ingrid Mom. Amy asked me if I would have a problem if Tina came to the wedding. I replied that I would be disappointed if she didn't invite her. I even offered to put her up in a hotel. She showed up with a guy in tow. I didn't see wedding rings on either of them. If Tina was having a hard time being around Ingrid and me, it didn't show. Just before the wedding, Tina introduced him to me. I shook his hand and we chatted for a while. In one form or another, he worked in the medical supplies industry. I had no problem meeting Tina. It was water that went under the bridge and headed for the ocean. I walked Amy down the aisle and handed her to Sam. He looked a little pale as they recited the vows, but he managed not to pass out. Ingrid had done everything she could for the reception. There was live music, a huge amount of food, and an open bar. The newlyweds stayed for a long time, and we danced all the dances. And yes, I danced with Tina. We talked about how happy we were for Amy. No old wounds opened up. I got the feeling that she had gotten over it too. Ingrid and I, Sam's mom and dad, Tina and her date sat at the same table. I was pleased with the way the evening had turned out. Nothing had happened to ruin it for Amy and Sam. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video. Some days you can't win no matter what you do or say. These are the days you wish you had pulled a sheet over your head and stayed out of the house. Being the head of the house, according to your better half, means you have a certain responsibility that you sometimes wish you had. Mine started the moment I was awakened by the police department at 7 a.m. on a Saturday morning and told that my bar had been broken into. I quickly got dressed and sprinted out the door, ready to jump in my Ford, but discovered I had a flat tire. It didn't help that I had only gotten about 4 hours of sleep. In a hurry, I grabbed my wife's company car since it was Saturday and hit the road. Unfortunately for me, since the cash was locked in the safe, they had taken most of the bar's liquor supply. One of the officers said someone had gotten themselves a huge new stock of top-grade bootleggers. They damaged the front entrance by driving their car through it. My rough estimate is that it should be at least 2 weeks before it opens. The police wrote it up as a robbery. After the insurance agent came and took pictures, I boarded up the house. Now I had to wait for the insurance agent to start repairing the main entrance. Fortunately, the retail losses to my business would be covered by insurance until I could reopen. It was around lunchtime, and I was getting ready to climb into my wife's car to go home when I heard a voice yelling, "Melody, wait!" I turned in the direction the male voice was coming from, causing the man running toward me to freeze in place. When I looked at him, he muttered, "Oops, sorry, I got the wrong car," and quickly walked away. Back home, I described the man in detail to my wife Melody, but she didn't seem to guess who he might be. Melody asked me the reason I was in such a hurry early this morning that I had to take her car. I replied that the bar had been broken into, and the police had called me to the scene. After a quick bite of a sandwich, I changed the tire on my truck and went to fix it. It turned out to be a burst valve stem. Before heading home, I stopped along the way to pick up 2 new pairs of blue jeans, a package of Hanes t-shirts, and a MAGA hat. When I returned, I found a note from Melody saying she had gone shopping. I used to work on Friday and Saturday evenings because that was when we had the most work. This meant that by the time I got home, it was already morning. I shaved off my beard for the first time in 12 years, after which I showered and got ready to hit the road as usual. Except I didn't brush my hair. Their natural curls ended up strewn everywhere. As a result, I had changed my appearance so much that I almost didn't recognize myself. I was going to make the most of the night and check out the other establishments in town. I headed out at my usual time, as if nothing had changed, since Melody still hadn't returned. Entering the bar through the back door, I grabbed my new clothes and changed into them. I picked up an old pair of reading glasses that one of my coworkers had left behind to complete my new look. Clean-shaven, I looked much younger. With black-rimmed glasses, I could pass for a university dork. Then it dawned on me that everyone knew my truck, so I called a cab to pick me up and take me to National Car Rental. I chose a white, unassuming, medium-sized Ford. I started on the north side of town, working my way south. Walking into a restaurant and ordering a beer, I observed how well-trained the staff was, studied the location, decor, customers, and prices. I was learning a lot of little things that might come in handy in my own business when I reopened the establishment. After getting the information I needed, I quite often walked away, leaving behind a full mug of beer. It was at the 7th establishment, located along the Mississippi River in a poor part of town where university students hung out, that I discovered something that changed my whole world. I had just walked through the front doors of the New City Jack when I saw her. My wife Melody was on the dance floor with a man who was not me. For a slow dance, they seemed to be dancing pretty damn tight. My first inclination was to do some serious physical damage to his face, because this was the same man who ran up to me during lunch calling her by name. This clearly indicated that my loving wife was lying to me. Melody was wearing a tight outfit like I had never seen before. The blouse was half unbuttoned and everyone could see her full cleavage. Being a bartender, I knew that appearances can be deceiving. I started looking for a seat to observe her when a guy shouted to me over the loud music, "There's room here if you agree to buy a table." He was surprised that I took him up on his offer and asked the waitress to bring me a double gin and tonic. I found out it was a group of regulars. I said I was just passing through and stopped for the night. I asked if they were always this busy. On weekends, yes, because of the university students. As the evening progressed, I casually inquired who the lady was, dressed in matching white, almost see-through pants and a low-cut blouse. I was asked why I was interested in this. I said that she seemed to flaunt her sexuality a lot, as if she was looking for someone new. "She does that a lot," was the reply. "Melody Corbett is her name, and this is her boss, Payne Richards." I asked what's their history. Are they friends with benefits? The general consensus is that he's single and she's complicated, but they're regulars here and have been known to be together all the time. The red-headed girl sitting across from me said they come here every Friday and Saturday night since her husband works out of town. The only thing I found out beyond that was when one of the other girls at the table said that they always come in her car. Before the band started their last set, I thanked the table for letting me join them. I treated one of them to another round and said goodnight. Slipping outside, I quickly found her car and was already deflating all of her tires when I was caught by a pretty red-headed girl sitting at the table. "You didn't know, did you, Caleb?" the redhead said. "My name is Carrie Ann, by the way, and I work with them." "Everyone at this table does too." "How did you know who I was?" I asked. "I didn't. I could just see by the look on your face that you had been holding back your ardor all night. Even though you tried not to, your eyes followed her too often. It wasn't until I saw you let the air out of her tires that everything fell into place. The questions you asked earlier made me wonder what the first thing I would do if I were her husband who had just found out about this," said Carrie. "So here I am to find out if I'm right. You don't work on oil rigs, do you? Maybe when you're done we should talk. It's only fair that the white Ford Tarsus in the corner labeled rental is the car I use. The Baitia Street bar is closed because it was trashed this morning," I said. "Melody thinks I still work there. I used this night to check out the competition, and I've been going around to different bars all night checking them out. Here are the keys. Get in it. I really don't want you on my radar in case someone else catches me." "You work at Baitia's on Baitia. This place has a great reputation," she replied, taking her keys and walking away. As soon as I was done, I joined her. Carrie was sitting in the driver's seat starting the car. I was lucky no one else was out. "Where do you want to go?" asked Carrie. "Any place where we won't be disturbed or overheard," I replied. "This is my apartment. Besides, I needed a ride home," Carrie said with a smile. It was a 20-minute drive to her modular home outside of town. I was surprised to see a car in the driveway. "That's my car, Susan. The brunette who was sitting with us picked me up and we drove together. It's easier to brush off unwanted attention if you say you came with a friend." She said. I texted her and told her I'd taken a cab home. It was a beautiful house that looked like it was new because it looked like it had hardly been used. She got us each a couple of beers and we started talking. "Carrie Ann, thanks for catching me." "I don't know what else I would have done if I had stayed," I said. You made me realize that I may have been overreacting. You weren't Payne. He has a monthly standing room at the Ramada Inn on 4th. If you follow them, you'll find the two of them going there right after closing time, Carrie Ann explained. She comes in with a shopping bag wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt, and when she goes out with him, she's wearing dressy clothes. After they return, about 2 or 3 hours later, she leaves, freshly washed, in the same blue jeans and with the same shopping bag in hand. How do you know all this? I asked. My brother is one of the night managers. He works Wednesday through Sunday. According to him, they've been lovers for over a year, Carrie said. It was Melody who told him that you work on the oil rigs and can be away for up to 6 months at a time. As a result, he has the impression that you are a married couple who have an open relationship. She must have seen the shock on my face because she said, "Oh shit, you have no idea about anything at all." No, I didn't. The first problem is how I'm going to get proof, I said. The second is that her parents are backing my bar. I still owe them about $20,000. Let me talk to my brother and see what can be done on his end. They might have a videotape of her going in and out of the room. She could also get her own key card for his room, suggested Carrie. I'll see him at our parents' house next Friday afternoon because it's my parents' anniversary. We exchanged contact information before I left. I wanted to see what happened when they discovered she had a flat tire. It would help me decide if what Carrie had told me was true. I got back to the bar just before closing time, glad that there was plenty of light in the parking lot before the bar shut it down. It was a few minutes before Melody and Payne walked out of the building, holding hands and furtively kissing as they walked to her car. I noticed that he pulled his keys out of his pocket to unlock the passenger door for her. That's when they noticed the flat tire. As they approached the trunk, he noticed a second one. Melody ran around the other side of the car, discovering that all the tires were flat. I wasn't close enough to hear what they were saying, but I saw enough to know that they were acting like a married couple would in this situation. It said a lot about how long their relationship had lasted. It wasn't just a flash in the pants. He pulled out his cell phone and made a call. 20 minutes later, a tow truck with an air generator showed up and inflated the tires. I watched them as he drove them back to the Ramada Inn on 4th. Just as Carrie explained that when I was supposed to get home, Melody came out with still damp hair, dressed in blue jeans, carrying a large shopping bag from Macy's. It's hard for a man to realize that a woman who swore in her marriage vows to love only him has willingly and eagerly become another man's whore. I know I just learned this firsthand. I headed back to return the car. They called me a cab so I could pick up my truck. It was already 5 in the morning when I got back to my driveway. I fell asleep on the couch in the downstairs family room, dressed the same way I had been when I left for work. The next day, she didn't even realize her secret was out. Mel and I met when I was talked into helping a buddy out by being sent on a last-minute double date. Mel's family was visiting cousins, and he couldn't go on the date without her coming with him. As soon as I saw her with her shoulder-length black hair that seemed to draw you in with her blue eyes, I was interested. You could tell she had Betty Davis eyes because when she looked at you, it seemed like she was looking right into your soul. I was soon blown away. Even without makeup, because her father, a strict man, wouldn't allow it, she won me over. I ended up going to see her every weekend for 2 hours until I graduated against my old man's wishes. I guess you could say my persistence wore him down. She went to college and I didn't. I worked and took business courses online. In her sophomore year, she got an engagement ring. The next summer, the bar went up for sale. Her father and I stopped by for a couple of visits after his Craftsman made of wood were delivered. I mentioned that whoever bought it would have to gut it. It was too dark and old. He said exactly what was needed, and I spent an hour explaining to him what was needed and why. He ended up lending me money from his retirement fund at 6% interest and even helped me gut the house. I detailed the new design. We built it together, saving major labor costs. In 10 years of owning the house, I had reduced the loan amount from $200,000 to just under $20,000. It was now worth twice that. For a man like him, keeping his word was very important. At that point, Melody's parents insisted that we start a family. I was more than ready, but she wasn't. Now I understood why Melody wasn't ready. In her eyes, from what I could see, I wasn't good enough to be the father of her children. I went to the bank on Monday, applied for a commercial loan, and got an overdraft. The bank agreed to this if I paid off my father-in-law. By Wednesday, everything was ready. When I handed Melody's father the last payment, he handed it back to me signed, If you recall, you gave me the rights to the design of the bar you created, but not the name. My retiree sold the plans 6 times, and as a result, I more than doubled my initial investment in you. He then wrote out a letter stating that the final mortgage payment received was paid in full. The next day, I went back to the bank and paid off the loan, leaving only an unsecured overdraft. The repairs and some changes I had in mind were progressing on my bar, but my wife, with her head up her ass, still had no idea what was going on. It was becoming obvious to me that she was oblivious to what was right in front of her, including me, as her thoughts were preoccupied with other things. Friday night, I arrived at my wife and her lover's favorite place, disguised as I had been the week before. Using Ami du Chambertin, a cheese from France, I plugged the exhaust pipe in her squad car, shoving it so it couldn't be seen unless you looked directly into it. Its pungent odor was worse than a huge hog yard. It grew worse as it fermented due to the heat. Before going into their favorite bar, I found his company car parked outside the hotel, and after pouring a 2-pound bag of sugar into the gas tank, I removed the valves from the stems. Soon I was sitting with their coworkers again and watching them continue to flaunt their sexual relationship. They were so engrossed in each other that they paid no attention to anything or anyone around them. At times, they got so heated that just watching them made people hot. Carrie Ann tried to stay close to me. She even refused all requests to dance. At times, when she saw me tense up, Carrie would take my hand, urging me to stay calm. I slipped the bartender a $100 bill with my email address written on it to get his attention, and, wearing my disguise, walked past the bar to the men's room. As I was returning to my seat, he asked me to explain. I told him that the best video clip sent to this email account of Melody and Payne by the end of the month would earn him and the announced winner $500 cash each. The only rule is that if they can't find out about it, otherwise the contest is canceled. He asked why I wanted to do this. I pulled out my wallet and said it's for your eyes only. He looked at my ID. Smiling broadly, he nodded his head. This is going to be fun, he said. I'm married and I'd love to help you burn that cheating bitch. He invited me to come closer so I could whisper. I know how to get some Spanish fly, he said. I think next weekend Saturday we'll have a special unlicensed after-hours party. I replied, that would be perfect since the bar will reopen next Thursday. Spanx was a clear liquid prescription drug that made people extremely horny. Depending on the dose, its effects lasted from 12 to 24 hours. If it was used on oneself, it was a very stormy night. Doctors often prescribed it to couples who were having trouble getting pregnant. I was at home pretending to be asleep when at 3 a.m, Melody crept in quietly, like a mouse. I could hear her talking to someone on the phone for a long time. Finally, she crawled into the room next to me. That Saturday morning, I got up earlier than she did. Since she didn't have a lock on her cell phone, I went through her phone records. She had talked to Payne after she found out I was home. She had also forgotten to erase her messages. One that interested me was addressed to her older sister. It read, Sis, I need a cover for last night. I'm going to tell Caleb I was with you last night. Using my cell phone, I took a picture. Of course, I later got the explanation that she had gone to visit her sister and brother. The following Tuesday, Carrie Ann Lasher texted me, Can we meet? I replied, At the truck stop by the highway. I'll be there in half an hour. She replied that she would see me there. Carrie Ann was waiting for me when I arrived. I don't think I've ever seen a nicer smile in my life. I was starting to grow a mustache and a goatee. She took a picture of me on her cell phone so she would have my image for her contact information. Carrie remarked that she liked the way I looked on it. Unfortunately, Melody still hadn't noticed the change in my appearance. Hi, Red, I said, sitting down. You look really happy. I'm Caleb, she replied. You will be too when you study the information my brother gave me this morning. The only problem is that he wants you to cover his printing and copying costs. The owners were charging him 20 cents a sheet if he printed anything for personal use. The waitress came over, and I ordered a big breakfast for the day. 3 eggs, 3 slices of toast with sausage and bacon. Carrie ordered a cheese omelet. We both ordered orange juice and coffee. The information revealed that Melody had had her own keycard to his room for over 6 months. He copied it every time it was used. Throughout that time, he had been using the card regularly 4 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 7 in the evening. I showed Carrie the image I had received of my wife's message to her sister. And what are you going to do about it? Asked Carrie. Are you going to get a divorce? There's a special party next Saturday for Melody and Payne. I hope they send me a bunch of videotapes because it's going to be wild. Once I have them, I'll take all the information I have and show it to her father to explain why she doesn't want my kids. At the same time, she will be served with a divorce petition in their hotel room. I've made sure that this will be videotaped as well. When you put the package together, email it to me, please, Carrie asked. Why? I asked. Payne's corporate car is out of commission and is a complete write-off, Carrie said. There is such a foul odor coming from Carrie's car that they may be forced to do the same to it. I'd like to suggest to our corporation that an angry husband may be to blame. When do you want it shipped? I asked, trying to hide my glee. How does it sound that she's being serviced at the same time? Carrie giggled. And may I use your name? I lost it. Released with a rumble of laughter. Damn, you can be a real asshole. Carrie laughed. Damn, I just realized you did. Are you going to tell me how and when? I did it perfectly, I said with a wink. I'm a gentleman and I'll never tell. We ordered medication through our doctor. I called a friend after getting a picture of her birth control pills and ordered a year's supply of sugar pills that mimicked the ones she was taking. He, because he was a pharmacist, was able to duplicate everything, including the labeling. On Wednesday, I had them on hand. Before she got home from work, I had already switched them. Now all I had to do was buy time. Bad luck helped me the other night when an idiot ran a red light on the way to work and hit me so hard in the side that he drove into cars standing at the light. My truck was totaled. They had to cut me out with the jaws of life. An ambulance took me to the hospital to be checked out. My wife Melody and her parents met me. After 6 hours of examination, I was finally released. The doctors told me to hold out for at least 2 days before returning to normal activities. No driving for a week, he said, to give your broken bones time to heal. After that, a month of light duty. That meant Melody stayed home, looking after me after work. By Saturday, she was starting to worry. I smiled, knowing she had been off the pill for 3 days. I said I was done resting. I abruptly asked if she could drive me to the bar and pick me up when I called her after closing time. She readily agreed. While I was showering and getting dressed, I heard her talking on her cell phone, making arrangements for a night out. She dropped me off. I told my staff that I wasn't working, but just wanted to spend the night to see if the changes I had implemented were working. The cook I hired was great. Our sales before the concert doubled, and for a Saturday, that says a lot. The place was sold out. From the moment we opened, we started attracting lunch customers because of the daily specials we were promoting. Its food complemented the bar's theme. Every night, the restaurant closed at 8 o'clock. After that, you could always get pickled eggs or sausages. He was an elderly gentleman who wanted to get home early in the evening. His problem was that he had retired too early, and staying home with his wife was driving him crazy. When he first suggested it to me, I brushed it off until I checked out other bars. He ordered the food, set the prices, and told me that in addition to his salary, I would have to pay him 10% of the gross profit. We worked together to set things up. We set up what he called his cramped little kitchen the way he wanted it. Everything he cooked was made from scratch. Shepherd's pie and Irish stew were automatically popular, but he had his own twist that put it an order of magnitude above the others I tried. This forced our large bar stock in my office to go downhill. We had to hire new kitchen staff that he hand-selected. So far, the reviews have been top-notch. It was about 8:30 in the evening when I saw her walk in with her friend Susan. Carrie Ann Lazar looked amazing. As soon as she saw me, a big smile appeared on her face. At 9 o'clock at night, we had a 3-piece band that started playing light folk songs and a few Irish standards. On a good night, the dance floor was half full. They sat at a table for 8 people. Carrie Ann was dressed in Irish colors. Her blouse and pleated skirt complemented each other perfectly. Seeing a natural red-headed woman in green was amazing. One of my waitresses said she was an attention getter. I had to agree, as I had a couple of specialty drinks prepared for them. I held them up to them myself, saying, "Compliments of the house." "Caleb," Carrie Ann said as if it was important, "you remembered what we like, thank you. Caleb is my dear friend Susan." I extended my hand in a friendly way, and Susan took it. Then she said she'd be right back. I went behind the bar and got myself a large glass of ginger ale. I promised myself that I would never drink in my own bar. I had kept that promise for 10 years and I wasn't about to start now. With that glass, I walked back to the table and sat down across from Carrie Ann. Carrie stood up and sat down next to me. Susan didn't look surprised. "I'll take the seat early," Carrie Ann announced, "before the rest of the team arrives. Susan Caleb is Melody's ex-husband." "You're not kidding, are you?" replied Susan in surprise. "No, it's not," I replied. "That first night you all met me, I was checking out what was on offer in town because this bar was closed for renovations. I was in complete shock when I was invited to sit at your table. Later, Carrie caught me doing something I shouldn't have done on the street. After I told her about my behavior, I ended up giving her a ride home. We've been friends ever since." "He had no idea what his wife was doing while he was here at work," explained Carrie Ann. "That's why we're here today. I wanted to make sure he wasn't alone." "But why Baisha on Baisha?" Susan said. "The place has a reputation as a high-class establishment." I laughed. "I'll take that as a compliment, although that wasn't my goal when designing the bar. I just wanted to have a nice enough place to bring my girlfriend." "Susan," Carrie said, "Caleb not only built this bar, he owns it." Carrie and I noticed Susan's surprised look. It wasn't long before the place began to fill up. When the rest of the team arrived, the table was filled to capacity. Carrie Ann and Susan kept me on the dance floor most of the night. My staff was glad that I was enjoying myself for once. It was noted that the dance floor had never been so full. I was surprised when everyone agreed that the volume of the orchestra was just right. It was loud enough that you could hear your thoughts. The staff noted that we had a larger crowd than usual for a Saturday night. After the bar closed for the night, I asked Carrie Ann to drive me home. She and Susan did so. That's when she told me that most of the crew agreed that this place was a much better place to hang out because it wasn't designed for the university singles crowd. I was pleased because word of mouth had just expanded my clientele. Waking up late Sunday morning after 8 hours of sleep, I discovered that Melody wasn't home. That didn't surprise me. I figured that if everything had gone according to plan, she wouldn't have made it back in time. I spent the next 2 hours being a very concerned husband. I spent time calling both sides of the family looking for her, while feigning concern as all calls from me to her went to voicemail. I called Carrie Ann and told her what was going on. She decided that my calling everyone was a smart decision on my part. While talking to her, I got another call. I told her I would call her back. It was my father-in-law. "Hi, Dad," I said. "I'm sorry I still haven't heard anything after talking to you this morning." "That's what I thought, Caleb. That's why I'm calling. Mary and I decided to come to the Ramada Inn on 4th for Sunday brunch. Now we wish we hadn't because we found Melody's car parked there." "I don't know what to tell you, Dad. I haven't had my truck replaced yet and I still can't drive. There's no way I can make it. So go enjoy your lunch and I'll talk to you later." I replied in a concerned tone. My father-in-law was a strict man who lived and died by his own standards and principles. In his opinion, there was too much gray in the world. Everything had to be black or white. He didn't want to watch Anderson Cooper because how could anyone take anything that Colobus said as truth? He couldn't understand that in our society the basic truths he was raised on no longer existed. He was surprised that a man my age didn't have tattoos on his body. I replied that I have a lot of respect for myself, so I refused to follow the masses. Most of those who put tattoos on their body regret it later. Just because people chose to live their lives as they see fit did not make them right in my eyes. Our society has become so self-centered that we have stopped caring about our neighbors. One evening, we had a heated discussion about law and order and their decline. I said that people still look to our government as an example of how we should behave, and look what they do. One side says we should follow the law, the other side encourages breaking it. One promotes irresponsibility, the other demands responsibility. The word racist has been changed by one political party to mean that regardless of color, religion, or heritage, you are a racist if you do not promote and accept their views as if they were the gospel of Jesus Christ. If Hitler were alive, I added, he would claim that they are following the early years of his life's journey. In their eyes, you and I are but a minority to them and their followers who are too stupid to follow their doctrines. If you argue with them or oppose their wishes, you are branded a racist, harassed, and attacked. Now they show up in democratically controlled cities wearing masks, peddling their form of social justice against people like us. The only opinion they want to hear is their beliefs coming out of your mouth. Unfortunately, the leadership says the situation will be investigated and charges will be filed, but we both know that will never happen. Equal justice for all is a thing of the past. He agreed that the situation will get worse before it gets better. This is exactly what Hitler and his followers did before coming to power. We who study history to learn see our great country repeating history. It is sad that one party had to bring such a culture back to America and make it normal again. It was these same attitudes that led to the first Civil War in the United States of America. At times I had to wonder if we were headed for the second one. Dad, I finished, whether we like it or not, this is the reality of the world we live in now. The way he looked at things, if her father caught Melody with a lover, she'd be lucky to escape his wrath with her life. I wrote to him that this wasn't the first time she'd gone somewhere without my knowledge, and attached an image of her message to her sister. I called Carrie back to let her know what my father-in-law had discovered and what I had just done. She laughed, then asked what I was doing. I replied that other than smiling, it was nothing much. "Do you want me to pick you up so we can do something?" she asked. I honestly said I'd love to, but it's probably best not to disappear. They'll worry, and I think they have enough to worry about already. It was about 6 o'clock in the evening, and I was sitting in the kitchen eating a pizza that had been delivered to me when I heard a car pull up in the driveway. When I looked out the window, I saw that it was Melody's dad, and he was alone. I watched him get out of the car. He looked like a broken man. I went and let him in, then got a bottle of Marker's whiskey to pour us a nice stiff drink. Taking a clean plate, I told him to eat a slice of pizza. "Caleb, it's bad. I was at home when I called you. Your message got me thinking, and I went to talk to Mandy first because I wanted to make sure my thoughts were right," he said. I asked the day manager of the hotel to call the night manager early. I came back. It seems the affair with Melody had been going on for over 6 months. Mandy, her older sister, happened to find out about it herself and promised to keep it a secret because Melody explained that she wanted to experience the life of a wild single child before settling down and raising children. I pretended to be shocked, but partly I was because I didn't expect Mandy to be honest about it. I was about to leave when Melody came out of the elevator, holding his hand. He had a huge smile, like he was proud of his latest conquest. I passed out. "The night manager and the day manager had to pull me away from him," he said. "I came here because I think this will be the last place the cops will look for me." "Dad, the first thing I'm going to do is call Mom to let her know you're okay," I said. "Then I'm going to call the manager of the Ramada Inn to see if Melody's lover is going to press charges." My mother-in-law was devastated, but was grateful that her husband had come to see me. Melody called her to apologize. Her mother said, "For what?" "For getting caught. For creating a situation that could land your father in jail? For having an affair? Or for what we found out? Your apology means nothing. What about Caleb? About your marriage? You're just hoping we can help you get out of the mess you made for yourself." Then she hung up. I told her if I heard anything else, I'd tell her thanks. I called Jason Lasher and introduced myself. I told him I still owed him $5. He laughed. "Did my sister tell you that?" I answered yes more than once. "She never forgets anything," he said, "so if you want, pay me to do it in front of her." I asked why. "It will save us both a lot of heartache. She, like our mother, clings to everything like a dog to a bone. She needs to see that before she lets go." I laughed and said I could put up with it as long as I knew. Then he told me I think she has a crush on you. "If you are not interested, let her go." I replied that I am still married. "Until I'm done with that, I'm not making any decisions about my life. I promise you, Jason, that I will be careful not to take her where I'm not ready to go myself." I then told him that my father-in-law was with me and I needed to know if the police had been called. He informed me that they hadn't, and that Melody had convinced Payne not to press charges, even though he wanted to at first. I said thank you, Jason. I told Dad the good news before I gave it to Mom. I could see the relief on his face. "Caleb, what are you going to do about this mess?" he asked anxiously. I pulled out my cell phone and prepared a message for Melody. I showed it to her father. It said, "Dad just told me everything. Congratulations, you should feel proud. In just one day, you threw away parental guidance, ruined our marriage, and tore my soul apart. Don't be sad. Be happy. You got what you wanted. Don't come home. The Melody I knew doesn't live here anymore. If you send him to his father, my marriage will end right now. If not, it will die slowly for another 6 months. I said it quite sincerely. Once you break trust, you can never get it back. Let's give this dead marriage a quick, honorable death, he said, hitting the send button. Mary always said that Melody married her father. This just proves she was right. After we were done with pizza and drinks, we went to Lumberland and bought a set of 3-door deadbolt locks. As soon as we installed them, the whole family drove up to us. Mandy's mom, her husband Jack, and the adorable kittens. They ended up leaving around 10 o'clock. I texted Carrie Ann, "Are you awake?" She responded very quickly with a call. "Are you okay?" "I have to ask because Jason called and told me what happened," asked Carrie. Payne has 2 black eyes and a broken nose. "Your father-in-law really jumped him, but he only managed 3 punches before Jason helped him stop." I laughed but replied, "He used to do amateur boxing when he was young." "I'd like to see that," said I. "He came here after everything happened. He didn't know where to go. I found out from your brother that there were no charges and I informed the family. They had all gathered here to discuss the mess and had already left." "What about Melody?" asked Carrie. I explained that my father-in-law had asked the same question. I explained that I had written Melody in a message. I asked him to read the message, to which he replied, "Let's give this noble the death penalty," and pressed send. "Your father-in-law sent a message for you. That's unrealistic." "Couldn't you have forgiven her and given her a second chance?" stated Carrie. "No, in his eyes, she's broken trust. And there's no getting it back. He still sees everything as black or white. She made her bed and let her live in it. Damn the consequences. In this situation, I agree with him," stated I. "He even helped me change the locks on the doors." "Any word on what happened last night?" asked Carrie Ann. "No, I haven't checked yet, been too busy." I laughed. I guess it doesn't matter anymore, though I'll keep my word. "Give him until Monday night," Carrie replied. "From what I've heard, it might surprise you." "Why?" I asked. "Rumor has it that the bartender at New City Jack used to be in videos. You know the kind of videos." Carrie chuckled. "If that's true, it wouldn't surprise me in the least that he didn't take advantage of the situation." "Are you serious?" I asked. "Yes, it is." Carrie replied, "What I want to know is when do I have an official first date, Caleb?" "How about the day Melody is served?" I said with a smile. "I'll even arrange for her to be served in the office." "The deal was that you would send me red roses in advance that day." "I want to be able to rub her nose in it because she's violating my notions of fidelity," Carrie said. "It's going to be very interesting at work tomorrow." I hung up the phone and thought about what I knew about Carrie Ann. She was about 24, unmarried, and very good-looking. About 5 feet 8 inches tall. While she couldn't be called overly slender, she wasn't thin. My grandfather, looking at her hips, would have said she was a good breeding animal. To him, that meant she would do a great job of making a life. She worked in the same regional office of the dental company as Melody and her lover, but she wasn't part of the management team. As far as I had learned, she was very selective about who she allowed into her life. She obviously had a close relationship with her family and inner circle to which she invited me. She liked to dance and drink, so she was sociable, just like me. Carrie had a great personality but was cautious. Because of this, I had more questions than answers. For example, she seemed more educated than the position she was working in. It gave the impression that something else was going on. Going to bed, I hummed, "Hey, Carrie Ann, what's the game? Can anyone play?" Knowing what I would be facing on Monday, I arranged for my assistant to take over the bar until I got my personal life sorted out. Mandy came over with Jack's truck to help me pack her sister's personal belongings. She stopped by the packing supplies store so we could do it right. We started with the master bedroom. While I laid out and taped up the boxes, she started going through the dresser drawers. "Caleb, I can't believe what my sisters are doing." Mandy replied, "I never approved of it and didn't say anything because I thought she would wise up. When my dad told me about your message, I broke down and told him the truth. I've only known about it for a month. He took it as a personal failure. In his opinion, it's his fault because he didn't raise her right. I think my mom feels the same way. Mandy, my emotions haven't gone away yet. The night Melody texted you, I found out about it. It happened by accident. I went to the bar to check out the competition. That's the only reason I took the picture. I was starting to build a case to confront her, I explained. I didn't expect it to turn out this way, and I'm really sorry. Damn, didn't you tell her that the bar had been broken into and that it was closed? She asked. Yes, it was, but in hindsight, I'd say she heard but didn't listen, I stated. I should have realized that this was her way of telling me that our marriage was dead. Melody was always protected by our father, as was I, Mandy says. I had to become a parent myself to appreciate the sacrifices he made. I try to instill that quality in my children. Melody, even when she was little, never recognized right and wrong. It has always been and will always be that way with her. I can't say I wish I'd seen it sooner. I think about your mom and dad too much, I said. Not many people can say their father-in-law is one of their best friends. When Mandy got to her sister's intimate parts, she asked for sewing scissors, which I quickly found. Before packing Melody's underwear, she cut out the crotch. The bras she cut between the cups. She must have been sending her sister a message. All the ruined items were thrown into a box. I was glad she did that because I couldn't. It took us about 4 hours to finish about half of the work. I asked her if she would let me take her out to lunch before we got back to work. She agreed and took me to a new Chinese restaurant called Yumi's, which was just a smorgasbord of food that she really wanted to try. I'll be honest, I was very impressed with its quality and food selection for the price. We got there just as the lunch crowd was dispersing and caught Payne on his way out. With 2 black eyes, a broken nose, and swollen lips, he looked rough. My father-in-law had done him well. My God, said Mandy in surprise. My father did that to him. It'll take 2 months for it to heal. An eyewitness told me that your father only hit him 3 times before they jumped up and stopped him, I said. From the looks of Payne, my dad still has a hell of a punch. Mandy looked at me in surprise. If they hadn't stopped him, would Payne be in the hospital? I don't know, I said, getting out of the car. As we approached the entrance to the restaurant, Payne came out from around the corner and said, Mandy, please unblock Melody. She really needs to talk to you. Payne, have you met my brother-in-law, Caleb? She replied. I stepped forward. Payne's face turned dead white because he realized that I was the one driving Melody's car. He raised his fist as if preparing for a fight. If that's the way you want it, Payne, that's fine. Mandy will confirm that he started the fight, I said. As soon as she said she would do it, I lifted my foot and kicked him hard in the balls. When he fell over in pain, I punched him twice with my fists. I punched him as fast and hard as I could, several times as hard as I could. When he completely collapsed, I kicked him as hard as I could and hit him in the balls again. To finish it off, I hit him hard on his right arm. I didn't realize it, but it gave me the release I needed. I opened the door for Mandy and we headed inside. We were escorted to our seats. I ordered an unsweetened tea and she ordered a Coke. Before we go get food, I want to ask, did my daddy teach you those moves? Asked Mandy. I replied, not if you think it's part of my job to be a bouncer when necessary. That's why I asked you to witness that he started it. I didn't want a fair fight, I wanted to end it quickly. No sooner had Mandy and I filled our plates than my phone rang. It was Melody. She finally wanted to talk, but I didn't. Just pressed the red phone on the screen to disconnect the call. I think her boyfriend already called her, I said. Too bad he's not going to give her anything anytime soon. Mandy lost her composure and began to laugh uncontrollably. Everyone looked at her. I said out loud that I would never joke with her in public again. God, that was funny. I almost peed my pants, said Mandy. I'm glad you didn't. I replied, how would you have explained it to Jack? I would have been tempted to yell flash flood. Stop it, she said, starting to laugh again. After eating, we went back to work and kept at it until we were done. I packed up all those feminine things a woman adds to a house to make it her own. At 5 o'clock, we were unloading Jack's huge cargo van at the storage center at the place we had rented for him. I had to pay the security deposit and the first month's rent, but the owner agreed to keep the keys until she came to get them. I texted her to let her know what her sister and I had done. My insurer called about my truck with an offer from the guy who hit me. I knew it was low, so I told them I didn't want the money, but they should replace the truck with a commercially inspected vehicle with the same mileage or less. I did this because the insurance company will automatically find the cheapest option. That way it will cost them thousands to return the truck better than new. When we got back to my place, Carrie and Susan were already waiting for us. I introduced them to Mandy as her sister Melody's co-workers. I invited them all in. Mandy called Jack to let him know what was going on so he wouldn't worry. Now we were all sitting around drinking beer. We just came by to see how you were doing, Carrie said, and to see if you'd like to join us for dinner. Several people had a bad day at work, Susan said. Payne was actually in serious condition this morning and went to the hospital this afternoon. He never came back from lunch. Melody was looking for an apartment during lunch. I wish I felt sorry for any of them, Mandy said. We spent the day moving Melody's things into storage. Caleb let me pack her underwear, which I handled so that all her future lovers would have easy access to it. I informed the corporation via email why there was a problem with Payne and Melody's corporate machines, Carrie Ann stated. I attached a nice picture of Payne's face, saying that's what happened when Melody's father caught them. I added that office romances were not allowed, let alone long-term affairs. Do you hate my sister that much? Asked Mandy. No, I hated her behavior. I understand that you may feel that way because of what I did, Carrie said. I grew up in a family where we were held accountable for our actions. If we did something good, we were praised. If we did something bad, we paid for it. I just think they got away with it for too long. I got a call from the bar, and I excused myself to take the call. Later that evening, Carrie told me about what I had missed. Okay, Carrie Ann, how long have you been in love with Caleb? Asked Mandy seriously. The first night I met him, when he discovered his wife's romantic interest, I watched him hold back his anger until he stopped. Carrie said, instead of confronting her in public, he went outside and let the air out of her tires. I caught him. I could see his pain even though he was trying to hide it. He told me to wait in his rental car because he didn't want me to get caught with him. He was ready to go down for his behavior, but he didn't want to take me with him. In that moment, I realized he was different. We talked that night. He didn't swear. He didn't humiliate her. He was just trying to figure out how to get evidence to gently explain to his father-in-law why Melody didn't want to have children with him. Caleb has always been special, Mandy explained. In his relationships with other people, he seems to be able to step into their shoes. In family problems, he has always acted as a peacemaker. He's hurting, but he won't admit it to anyone. You have my blessing, but if you hurt him, I will come after you. When your father caught Melody in pain and lost him, I was surprised to find out that he came here to be with Caleb, Carrie explained. Did you know that your father was the one who sent the text that ended their marriage forever? No, I didn't. Thanks for telling me, Mandy replied. That explains why my parents didn't discuss our attempt to save their relationship. I came out and said, Mandy, call Jack and the kids and tell them to meet us at the bar. I just started making shepherd's pie for all of us for dinner, including Susan and Carrie, so give me a minute to change. After cleaning myself up, I returned to find Mandy gone and Susan waiting in the car. Carrie had put the beer bottles away, tossing them in the trash, and was busy wiping down the table. Thank you for doing this, I said. You're welcome. I like your sister-in-law. I think we're going to be good friends, said Carrie. She thinks very highly of you, doesn't she? So does she, I replied. At that moment, Carrie moved toward me, wrapping her arms around me. She lifted her head toward me. I responded favorably, lowering my head toward her, sharing our first taste of what was to come. We walked out of the house, holding hands, and headed to the car. We both saw the smile on Susan's face. I'm sure she saw ours as well. Carrie climbed into the front passenger seat and I climbed into the back seat. It took you two quite a while, Susan said, to recognize your attraction. You both moved slower than molasses. We're taking small steps until we get this whole mess sorted out, Carrie said. You know very well that when and if I get married, I want to be a stay-at-home mom when I have kids, with a husband who thinks like I do. We all arrived at Bythea's house at the same time. Of course, Mandy and Jack's two children ran up, clinging to my legs. The little angels had spent the day with their maternal grandmother. I walked into the bar holding a little girl in each hand. Jack swung the doors open in front of me. I heard Mandy tell Carrie that I would make a great father. My daughters just adore him to death, she said. When they're feeling really bad, he's the one who can make them calm down and go to sleep. You have no idea how many times I've called for him to come over and work his magic. I made a mental note to get a couple of bar stools. Mandy backed the service truck into the store her husband owned. The shepherd's pie got great feedback from everyone. Even older Mandy liked it because she put it all over her face. Which meant it was on me too, because she sat on my knee. Carrie seemed to be focused on me and my niece. We were all served a dessert made new by the chef. I laughed as Carrie finished her first glass. She reached over to take a sip from mine. When she tasted it, she was surprised that it was only ginger ale. "You're being naughty," she whispered. I laughed, then whispered in her ear. I made a promise to myself that I would never drink alcoholic drinks in this bar before I opened it. And so far I've kept it. I don't know what I said, but tears came to her eyes and she looked very proud. My assistant informed me that as of 6 p.m., when the shift changed, sales at the bar were up 16% and food sales were over 1,000 for the first time. When the ticket arrived, I pulled out my debit card to pay for it, handing the little girl to Lynn Carey. Susan asked why I was doing this. "Even though I own the business, it's still a business," I said. "I want my employees to be honest, so I have to be honest too. By paying my bill like every other customer does, I'm letting them know I won't tolerate it if they leave and don't pay theirs." "A lot of people don't think so," Carrie said, "but if you think about it, it makes sense." When the server brought the papers, I added 20% as a tip and put the card back in my wallet. After saying goodbye, Susan and Carrie drove me back to the house. It was time to check on the outcome of the party on Saturday night. When I opened my email, I realized that what Carrie Ann had told me was true. A bartender from New City Jack sent me a 2-hour video of the events of the night. It was professionally shot from various angles. The video was called Surviving University Night and started with Melody Corbett and Payne Richards. The show is strictly for 2 players. Opening the second and third files, I found copies of the contracts that both had signed, and their signatures were legally witnessed. It was now for sale on a paid adult site. The note said, "This will give you the tools to negotiate in a divorce." I went that route because the movie sells overseas and generates revenue every time it's shown, and I figured with your attitude you wouldn't mind. I didn't mind, and he was right. Melody will make sure her parents never see it. I texted Carrie to let her know you got it right. Surviving University Night, the video of Melody and Payne has now been posted on a paid adult website. I was disappointed at the lack of response until a while later when I heard a knock on the door. I had just finished showering and put on my pajamas. I opened the door half naked and wearing sandals. It was Carrie and she was smiling broadly, but it wasn't Carrie if you know what I mean. In less than 2 hours, she had lost at least 20 pounds from the bottom of her chest down. Come to think of it, she used to be a 10. Now she had to be a teenage 5. "Wow," was all I could say as I was in complete shock. "Who are you and what have you done to my Carrie Ann?" "You like it," Carrie replied. "I've gotten rid of my body shapes for good. There are a few things I need to explain, and your message allows me to do that. We have been investigating Richards Dental Supply Corporation for over 2 years," said Carrie Ann. "I work for the FDA as one of their investigators. They put me inside undercover, so I had to make sure I didn't look like the woman Payne was after." "Why?" "What?" said I in utter confusion. "All the materials they sell for false teeth and dentures are imported from China. We noticed that they were underpricing in the market, and we had to find out why. To do that, we needed to get inside to do a forensic audit," Carrie Ann explained. "It took us so long because they used 3 different companies to hide the sources of the materials. Their search took the longest. Richards has been selling contaminated materials to unknown consumers for over a decade while making obscene profits. Most people who have bought plates made from his materials have lead in their mouths at all times. Payne has a long history of stalking married women. I'm afraid Melody is his next victim. One day she'll wake up and realize he never loved her. She was just a whore he could use for his pleasure." "Then I came into your life," I said, "and distracted you. So Susan's an agent too?" "Yes, that's her. I met her in my first year of university. We were both majoring in accounting," Carrie said. "Before we go any further, I need you to get the video and any other information to my agent friend at the FBI. The bartender at New City Jack's was doing the same thing Melody and Payne did with the others. He is hoping that your information will help him make the connection that will bring this whole gang down." We sent it together. I poured her a glass of white wine and got a cold beer for myself. We were just talking when her cell phone rang. She said it was my mom. I asked if she wanted privacy, and she said no. I was surprised by her answer as I put it on speakerphone. "Hi, Mom, I see you finally got my message," Carrie said, smiling. "Did you seriously write that you were leaving the FDA?" her mom asked. "Yes, Susan and I will be done here at the end of the week, but we'll work until we're fully settled," Carrie explained. "We'll have to come back to testify, but we'll stay in town and start our own firm. Susan is moving in with me to cut costs until we get established. For 6 years, we've been pushing for you to settle down and stay in one place." "Why now?" asked Karis's mom. "Why did you decide to settle near home?" "Okay, Mom," Carrie laughed. "You won't stop until I tell you. I met a man who interested me enough to make me wonder if he could be the one." "Is this the same Caleb you're talking about?" asked Karis's mother. "Mom, that's enough." "Goodbye," said Carrie and hung up the phone. "Don't feel bad. Once the last child leaves home, all mothers start wanting grandchildren to fill the void that has been created in their lives," I said. "I have an appointment with a divorce lawyer tomorrow." "Susan and I are quitting Richards tomorrow. The Food and Drug Administration is coming on Wednesday with warrants and seizure orders. They want us both gone before that happens. That way they can claim they got the information legally, even though they already know where to look." Carrie finally left around 1 o'clock in the morning. On Tuesday, I got the insurance company to pay for the rental car, and then I went to the lawyers to start the process of filing for divorce. I was the first one at her place that day. She asked what proof I had, and I told her the whole story. She asked me to call my father-in-law, who agreed to come and testify. I let her listen to the entire conversation. In addition to the printouts from the Ramada Inn, that would be an added plus. If she agrees to what I'm proposing for settlement, request that she and her attorney meet with us so we can show her what is on that stick. It depicts what was created last Saturday night with their consent, I said. I even passed on the email that this was done. "What makes you so sure she won't fight you after seeing this?" my feminist liar asked. "Take the stick home and watch a 2-hour movie alone. I keep the business, she gets the house. No support or anything," I said. "And if she refuses?" she asked. "Then all family members on both sides will each get a copy of what I just handed you from an unknown email address," I said, getting up to leave. "Caleb," she said, "can you always be so dirty and stiff and cold?" "Only when a person's behavior leaves me no choice," I replied. Come to think of it, she was the one who made me realize that the last 12 years of my life had been mostly wasted. This moment struck my attorney as if she had just been stabbed with a sharp knife. Carrie and Susan actually went to their employer's office to quit. Melody, as office manager, was shocked. They were leaving at the end of the day. Filling their vacancies would be a challenge. Payne was on the spot, but he was in a lot of pain. No one would say what happened, but his right hand was in a cast from wrist to first knuckles. Payne spent most of the day in his office dealing with phone calls from corporate headquarters. He knew that the only reason he was still working was because he was family. He was given a small reprieve when he agreed to pay the cost of 2 company cars out of his own personal pocket. It was made clear to him that he had to either marry the girl or fire her. He agreed to the latter when her divorce was finalized. After quitting my lawyers, I went to a real estate broker I knew. I wanted to find out what office buildings were for sale in the area. One of them, he thought, could be a gold mine if the new owner could find a respectable anchor. It was only 5 blocks to downtown from the Baicha store on Badia. It was now owned by the bank I was dealing with. He said he thought the bank was getting tired of wearing it. With a little facelift, interior painting, and landscaping, the 3-story building could be cleaned up quickly and attract attention. After looking him over, I agreed. We went back to his office and wrote up a proposal with a low price contingent on getting financing and inspection approval. I asked him if I could show the potential client a space that I thought would be perfect for him. He gave me the keys and told me to bring it in tomorrow. Around 2 in the afternoon, I texted Carrie, "Could you and Susan swing by the bar? I need to show you both something." She quickly replied, "Sure." I called my father-in-law and asked if he had an hour or 2 to spare. He asked me why. I explained that I was afraid I had to sell the bar to settle the divorce case and needed to start getting ready for a fresh start. I had an office building I was considering, and I wanted his opinion. He agreed, and I picked him up. We walked through the building, checking out the electrical. He pointed out a few things that the building inspector wouldn't notice, but could be used as bargaining chips. He asked what they were asking for. I told him and then disclosed what I was offering. Smart move. He said, you can always go up, but you can't go down. Personally, I think you should go for it. You need a couple new anchors. Do you have someone in mind? I said, just two ladies who are starting their own accounting firm, which is now working with Melody and me, since I may be forced to sell Basia. He smiled and said, if you get it, I'll help you remodel the space so it's open to both of you. It's bigger than your current place. Plenty of room for parking. Mandy tells me you're friends with them. She thinks they're good people. Thanks, Dad, I said. Do you really think Melody will claim your business in the divorce? My father-in-law asked. The Melody I used to know probably won't, but the one I'm divorcing probably will, I replied. She'll blame me for everything that happens in her life to justify her actions. Dad looked at me in shock. But that's not true. That's not what you and I know. I replied, name one situation, other than a legal contract, where the truth would matter in making a decision. I can't, and neither can you. In divorce courts, it all depends on what you can get the judge to believe. If Melody and I had children, I'd be a dead man in the eyes of any judge. But it's wrong, he said. Dad, we agree with you, but we're in the minority. We still believe in right and wrong. These days, most outside the family only care about themselves. The times when society was beneficial as a whole are forever gone, I replied. The proof of that is to look at how many people are homeless in the promised land of California. What is real for most people is what the media puts in front of them on that particular day, and it lasts about as long. I was back at the bar in my office when my realtor friend called to let me know that they had accepted the offer, but would not finance it even though I was a good client. I started looking for financing through LendingTree.com. I sent them my tax returns for the last 5 years to demonstrate that I was serious. Susan, Carrie, and I walked through the empty first floor of the building I wanted to buy. It had last been used as a call center. I told them about the plans for the new bar and restaurant I had in mind, and then asked how much office space they would need. Caleb, we can't afford what it would cost to finish. That's why we're looking at something that's move-in ready, Susan said. I decided even then that I would cover the costs out of pocket and build as the bar is established. I'll know if I have financing by Friday. I'll get the building for much cheaper than its appraised value. I said, Melody's dad will help with the construction, so that will cut down on a lot of the costs. Why are you doing this? Carrie asked. Because the court may force me to sell Baitia and Baitia as part of the divorce settlement, so I'm planning accordingly, I answered honestly. So in the next couple days, draw your needs for the next 2 years on paper. I'll work from there. What if you don't have to sell the bar? Asked Susan. My assistant got a promotion and I have 2 surgeries, I said. Wednesday was a bad day for Payne, Melody, and his parents. The Food and Drug Administration showed up, visiting all of their regional offices and headquarters en masse. Melody was handed a copy of my divorce petition on the grounds of adultery. On Friday, Melody and Payne flew out to Richard's headquarters. The deal was finalized on Friday, and I was able to squeeze out another $250,000 for remodeling. We started the interior remodeling. On the first floor, we tore down and stripped everything down to concrete walls and bare bones. Thanks to the concrete floors and steel framing, it didn't take long. During this time, our draftsman drew up detailed interior plans for the entire building. He redesigned the main entrance to include an elevator shaft for 3 floors. Contractors came in to run new plumbing for my section and Carrie and Susan's office, making 2 main entrances, one from the street and one from the main lobby. I had to cut and remove concrete so that a new elevator shaft could be installed and poured. At the same time, I built an interior concrete wall to provide permanent separation. Carrie and Susan would fly to Washington every Sunday night and return Friday night. They would stay until I finished work. I would pick them up and take them to the airport. Both helped out as much as they could. My soon-to-be ex's lawyer and my lawyer went nowhere. Every week her demands changed, and finally I said enough was enough and set up a meeting between the 4 of us. I was ready and angry enough to go for blood. After the elevator shaft was finished, I sandblasted the building. This removed the paint and returned the building to its original color, as well as refreshing the red brick to look like new. The crew remodeled the flat roof, bringing it up to modern standards. Finally, the interiors could be tackled. Her office would have men's and women's restrooms, a staff lunchroom, a beautiful reception area, and 6 offices. On my side would be public restrooms, a storage room behind the kitchen and bar, a suitable elevated area for the band with a nice dance floor. Contractors came in to do the interior. They did her part in less than 2 weeks. 2 more office buildings were purchased in the neighborhood. 2 buildings were sold and turned into the newest Bank of America branch. The local paper said that redevelopment was coming to a neighborhood that was more than ready for it. My meeting with my ex and her lawyer was scheduled for Friday. The kitchen equipment was delivered and set up on the white tile floor. The oak bar counter was built and dark pine laminate flooring was installed. All the electrics were ready and working on both sides. The tables and chairs and booths for the restaurant have been ordered and will be delivered on Monday. We did it all in less than 2 full months. My real estate agent found me a long-term tenant. The legal team occupied the entire 2nd and 3rd floors. It turned out that they covered the mortgage, taxes, and all the associated costs. I showed up for a meeting with my attorney and found that Melody was starting to show herself. She wanted me to step up and take on the responsibility of being a father. I listened to her claims and laughed when she claimed she was still on the pill when it happened. I told her we would do a DNA test to prove or disprove your claim. I then asked my attorney to show her what was on the stick I gave her. Melody's face turned white. Last time I looked, it had over 2 million hits, each one costing $5.99 a pop. I said, "According to your contract, you are entitled to 5%. Since we were legally married at that point, all of the proceeds you receive for this one-night adventure must belong to me equally because it must also be listed as a marital asset. Now I'm going to give you the weekend to offer me a serious agreement that will suit us both." I said, "Otherwise everything I have on this disc will be made public on Tuesday." The silence in the room was murderous. "Melody, we both know who the father of your child is, and his name is Payne," I said, getting up to walk out the door. "You made your choice, accept the consequences, and live with them." 10 minutes passed before my divorce lawyer called. "Caleb, she's offering you $350,000. You get to keep your business and your house. You must agree to never divulge or discuss what you know and give up all your rights to the movie. Draw up a settlement agreement, but stipulate that before I sign it, you must keep the funds for me," I replied. "How soon will the divorce be finalized?" "I'll set a court date right now, but it will be legal 30 days after the judge signs off." I was dressed to the hilt and waiting for Carrie and Susan as they disembarked from the small regional jet. My hands were busy because I was holding 2 sets of roses. Red ones for Carrie, yellow ones for Susan. As she walked through the gate, Carrie saw me and broke out into a huge smile. As soon as they approached me, I handed them each a check. Both of them had to kiss my check. We got their luggage and I pulled them towards the new sedan I finally bought, having gotten a cash settlement I could live with. "Before we take you home, I want to stop by and show you your finished offices. I think you should know that the rest of the building is rented by a group of lawyers," I said. "Carrie and I have reached a financial agreement on the property left over from my marriage, which will be approved by the court next week." "How much did you lose?" asked Carrie. "Is it as bad as we feared?" "Oh yeah, too bad," I laughed. We had a meeting with our lawyers and I got her video and a printout of how much she earned. I said that since one side was forcing us to agree to count all property as marital property, her earnings from the one-night stand video should be counted too. Since it was taken while we were married, 50% of the income owed to her should belong to me as well. Carrie cried with relief. "Now we can officially date." As a result of this and the threat I made at the end of the day, I get to keep my business, my house, and get $350,000 on top of that, I explained. She has a week to move whatever furniture she wants out of the house. "What do you plan to do with the house?" Carrie asked. "I'm going to sell it because I don't think the woman I fell in love with would want past memories to get in her way." Tears of joy ran down Carrie's cheek. "Caleb, you're still as slow as molasses in January. It took you over 2 months to say what I knew the night we met Mandy and her family," stated Susan. "But when you do it right." Even Susan, usually more reserved, cried when she saw that their finished offices were now approved for use. The use of oak and pastel colors made the space warm and very professional. All that's left is to name the business and register it, and buy the office equipment and furniture, I said with a smile. You ladies picked the colors well. Caleb Corbett, Carrie said, jumping into my arms. I love you. Damn it, you made me wait so long before you told me you felt the same way. No more holding back. Good. I just nodded my head and kissed her. Eventually, we took Susan to Carrie's house where they both now lived. It was the first time Carrie had traveled home with me. We spent a few hours catching up and fully opening up to each other. We went to breakfast at our favorite deli. Then I took her to Gerard's to see the rings. From cheap to the most expensive, she saw one she really liked but stepped back when she saw the price. I asked the salesman to bring it out so she could try it out. I went and brought it back. Carrie put it on her finger. It fit. While she admired it, I handed the clerk my debit card. Carrie said, Enough is enough. It's too much for a thing I'll only be wearing for a few months. You can put it in your jewelry box and give it to our oldest daughter when she turns 16, I replied in a firm voice. Even the seller had tears in her eyes as she processed the sale. Of course, the first person she called was Susan. We arranged to meet at the Baisha restaurant on Baisha at 6 o'clock. I told her that she should invite her mother and father to join us. She did so. They wanted to meet the man who had finally convinced their free souls to come home. I called Daniel my former father-in-law and his wife. Yes, I always called them Mom and Dad. To invite them over. Both said they would love to come. I informed them that Melody and I had come to an agreement and that the divorce would be decided next week. I found out that Payne and Melody announced their engagement in a text message a week ago because they still hadn't spoken. I contacted Mandy and asked her to bring the whole family. I called my chef and asked if he could cook something special and explained why. He said he would make a traditional Irish thick lamb stew with fresh cedar cookies, and he would add his own twist to each dish. He asked the bartender to serve Irish coffee with plenty of fresh cream for everyone but me. Unexpectedly, he ordered a private table at the back of the restaurant so we could have some privacy. Daniel and Mary, my in-laws, showed up first. This allowed me to introduce Carrie to them first. The biggest surprise was for Carrie and me. Her parents, Bob and Roseanne Lasher, were well-known relatives. Daniel seemed to keep them in the loop on all the details when they were at work. When Jack and Mandy showed up, the little ones immediately rushed to me. At their ages of 4 and 3, they hugged me tightly. I leaned over and took them both in my arms. Carrie held out her arms and the younger ones went to her. Over a huge dinner, we informed everyone that Carrie had gotten her ring. Everyone was shocked at its size. When Carrie explained how it happened and my response, her mother tried not to cry but couldn't. Even the relatives gave us their approval. They were confused when Carrie told them it was okay if I called you Mom and Dad. Cale made it clear that you would always be Mom and Dad to him. As usual, the food was exceptional. When the ticket was brought to me, Carrie's father snatched it and said that this ticket was on me. I wanted to say something, but I felt a foot kick me in the shin and I didn't. After everyone left except her parents, we told them our whole story down to the smallest detail. I want to ask you, Cale, if you don't mind, we've all had Irish coffee more than once except you. Don't you drink any? Asked Bob. I laughed. Carrie smiled. Papa Cale doesn't drink in any establishment he owns. Never has and never will. That's a promise he made before he even built this establishment, explained Carrie. It's his way of keeping himself in check and setting an example for his employees. So, this is a bit of a high-class establishment of yours, isn't it? He said with a laugh and a smirk, then added, I think it's the only establishment I think is good enough for my daughter, my friend. We brought them in so they could see the layout and design of her new office, and it gave us a chance to talk while the woman took the royal tour. He was impressed with the quality of the work, the overall design, and the colors. As a father, I could tell he was very proud. Daniel sees you as the son he never had. Says you are a man who stands up for his principles better than ever, said Karis's father. Off the record, Daniel is the father I never had. I grew up in a poor home without a father. He left before they were even married. My mother couldn't have a relationship with another man, so she raised me and my sister alone, I said. It was through Melody that I met him. He was as tough and hard as I was, street smart and libidinous, but he never backed down. Daniel always stood his ground when necessary. I learned a lot from him, like the fact that a real man is strong. In every way, he is my father, not by inheritance, but by choice. The moral principles and standards I carry within me came about because of him. I can honestly and proudly say that I became who I am because of him. We stood like that until the ladies returned, and then Carrie's father spoke. Carrie, the only thing your mother and I can say based on what we have been told and what we have learned. We approve of your choice and would be honored to consider him our son, he said. So welcome to Caleb's family. He held out his hand and I shook it. Carrie told me later that she was in complete shock because her father had never approved of anyone else before. We spent the night together. It was sad to see her go back. Both Susan and Carrie wanted to leave the FDA on good terms. I put the house on the market on Monday. Wednesday, I signed the divorce agreement and received the money she held in trust. On Friday, I sat in court and watched the judge rule on my divorce. Melody never bothered to show up. I picked up my assistant from Bythia's on Bythia and took him to the new bar. He loved the layout and the kitchen. The city council had given us all the permits we needed. It was a sports bar taken to the extreme. All that was left was to give it a name. Charlie, you've been with me from the beginning. Would you agree to leave Batia and run this place as general manager? I asked. Yes, of course I will, he replied gleefully. $75,000 a year. I said, with a 10% bonus each year based on net income. Charlie was overwhelmed. He'd just gotten the biggest pay raise of his life. If he plays it right, he saw how much I believed in him. What are we going to call him? He asked. Charlie's Bar and Grill. 3 years after the divorce, the accounting firm of Corbett and Sullivan was a huge success. Charlie's Bar and Grill has become a local treasure. Melody and Payne head to divorce court, where she catches him with her best friend. Her family still wants nothing to do with them. I had just experienced the worst day of my life. I didn't realize my wife Carrie had so many names for me. Every time she experienced another severe labor pain, I would get a new name. The twins were born within 20 minutes of each other. First a girl was born, then a boy. Both had Carrie's fiery red hair. Both relatives were in Carrie's room when we announced their names. Daniel Robert and Rosemary Ann. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.